G'day there guys, just want to say thank you so much for watching, it really does mean the world to me, and it's your host Markee. Welcome back to another episode of r/AmiTheA. I really do hope you enjoyed today's content. Please tell me what you think about it down below, and that's all I have to say. Enjoy the show, thank you. Posted by user HorrorPotato6499, titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to apologize for a childhood diary and getting angry my privacy was violated? I, 25 female, took in my dad, stepmom, and stepbrother while they were getting some major repairs done on their home. During the time they were with me, my stepsister, 22 female, was there to see them. She decided to snoop in my home. My dad and stepmom let her. She found an old diary I had and read it. She got upset by the contents of it, mostly because I wrote about how I hated having her in my life when my dad first married her mum, and saying she was annoying and bratty, and I wished that she could live with her dad out of state. All of this was written in a diary when I was 10. She freaked out when I got home. I asked her who gave her permission to look through my stuff. My dad told me to calm down. I told him they should have stopped her. My stepmom went nuts, saying it was horrible that I ever wished her daughter was sent away. It got a little nuts between us all. My stepsister demanded an apology for the stuff she read. I told her I was the person who owed an apology because she went into my private space uninvited and snooped through my stuff. She told me it didn't matter because she uncovered something that deserved to be uncovered. I told her it was that kind of attitude I didn't like about her back then. This set the three of them off at me, and I ended up telling the three of them to leave. My stepbrother wanted to stay with me, but his mum wouldn't let him. They have since reached out asking me to apologize. I stand firm in not apologizing and being the one who is owed an apology. Am I the a-hole? I don't think so. You were 10 years old and she was snooping through the house. I don't feel like this is something worthy or groundbreaking or something that needed to be uncovered. I feel like she's just using this as an excuse to vent and get angry at you. There is genuinely no logical basis to this. Who cares what a 10-year-old wrote yonks ago? It's 15 years ago that he wrote this. Do you think that he hasn't changed in 15 years? Are you crazy? Not the a-hole. I can't deal with people like this. Not the a-hole. Your stepsister basically just proved that 10-year-old you was correct and a very astute judge of character. I would hate to be judged so harshly on crap I said when I was 10. Kids are a-holes, often unintentionally or unknowingly. OP at 10 wasn't even an a-hole, just right. Not the a-hole, and gosh, you were 10, and they violated your privacy. They should apologize to you. That's a pattern for her. Has been since I met her. Which is why, had I known, my stuff would have been locked up a lot tighter in general so she couldn't snoop. No wonder you dislike her. She sounds like a massive pain in the ass. Always was. Admittedly, in the beginning, it was a little bit of jealousy mixed with her being annoying and me grieving my mum. But she was always a snoop, and she was always a demanding person. She felt like I owed her the title of sister. She felt I owed her being friends and spending a lot of time playing together, and she did not like hearing no for anything. So it made for some pretty crappy moments back then. Not the a-hole. This is crazy. It is very immature to flip out over something that happened 15 years ago. Even more so given that you were a child. I'm amazed that they ask for an apology after going through your private diary. The nerve of some people. And OP replies, it doesn't shock me too much. In general, she was let to get away with a lot when she was a kid that only she would get away with. It's so weird to me how you don't give a crap about letting someone grow up like that. My dad apologized a few years ago, so our relationship got better because of it. Obviously, he wasn't really sorry. Your dad is worse than your stepbro, that's really weird. Not the a-hole, of course. Posted by user ThrowRA42098, titled, Am I the a-hole for not giving my food to my aunt? I'm 17, male. I really like cooking, and I'm very good at it. I wish to become a professional chef when I grow up, and have already written a cookbook. Everybody in my family knows this about me, and on several occasions I have made, with the help from my sister, meals for family gatherings. That said, I do not like sharing my food. Once I take food onto my plate, I don't like anybody else eating from my plate. I love food and always make enough so that I will feel full. If other people are going to eat, I do make extra. However, I enjoy taking a full plate servings of my favorite dishes and like to finish it all. My parents know this, and so does my sister. Usually nobody else asks for me to share my food with them. Yesterday, my mother and aunt went out for dinner and I was home alone. I made some crock-pot spaghetti and meatballs and sat down to eat in front of the television. After 5 minutes, my mum and aunt came back home. I asked them how dinner was, and they said it was fine. My aunt saw me eating spaghetti and told me how mouth-watering my food is. I thanked her, and I continued to eat. She kept eyeing my plate as I was eating, and I felt a little uncomfortable. My mum saw this and said, "Hey, why don't you give some to Aunt Meg?" I chuckled and said, "Oh, sorry, there's none left. If I'd have known you wanted it, I could have made more." My aunt said, "That's okay, you can just give me half of yours." I was a little taken aback and I looked at my mum, but she nodded at me, urging me to give her my food. I said, "Didn't you guys have dinner already?" She said, "Yes, but you know I can't control myself around your food." Ha ha! She even went to the kitchen and got a plate and fork for herself and was coming to where I was sitting to take food from me. I stood up and said, "Hey, I think I'm going to finish this in my room." And I went to my room and locked the door and finished my food. By the time I came out, my aunt was gone, and my mother was very mad at me for disrespecting her like that. Was I in the wrong here? What's their problem? What the hell? You may make good food, but that's no reason to be like, you know what? Give me half the food you're eating. I've had dinner, but I want your food too. I just find that so odd and disrespectful to do that to someone who's just made their own meal. And you've already eaten. There is no justification for this. How do you feel disrespected when someone is eating their own dinner and they refuse to give you half? Who cares? There's no way that you can justify this. I don't think anything short of this man pulling a gun on her and saying, "Step away from the plate, ma'am, before I kablam," would make you the a-hole. There isn't anything else there. So I'm gonna go with not the a-hole for this one. You're living in crazy town. The fact that your mum got mad for that is just astounding. Edit. Holy F, lol, thanks for the upvotes. I just want to say that I'm not overweight. I'm 6 feet tall and weigh 63 kilograms, so I'm definitely not overweight. And I cooked in a 1.5 quarts and made just enough to feed myself. And also, I'm still in school, so I live with my parents and they buy the groceries. Not the a-hole. Joey doesn't share food. I am a fellow Joey. Touch my food and lose a hand. Touch my food and take a fork to the hand. I've done that twice as an adult after giving warnings. I have done this too, with warnings. The person trying to take my food was doing it on purpose, knowing I didn't share food or like it being stolen from my plate. Don't think he expected me to actually follow through with my warning. Insert his shocked Pikachu face. Not the a-hole. She didn't get the hints, plural. Your mother should not have offered your food to the piggy aunt. Maybe aunt can't control herself around your food, but you can. I would ask mother exactly how not giving aunt food from your plate is disrespectful of aunt, but aunt literally taking food from your plate after she just finished a meal and so was clearly not as hungry as you is disrespectful. Plus, it's spaghetti. Like, I appreciate OP is a good cook, but it's not beef Wellington with gold flakes or some food auntie will never get a chance to eat again. It's spaghetti. She can make it tomorrow. Come over to OP's another time and he can make some. Also, at 17, I remember being so effing hungry, like, all the time. 17-year-old boys are still growing, and it's rude AF to take food off their plates they most likely need. Time for Aunt to learn to control herself around food. Her failure to do so doesn't make OP disrespectful. Posted by user OTF Asian, titled, Am I the a-hole for declining to help out my nosy HOA neighbor who likes to complain about me? First, I wouldn't even ask here if my neighbor hadn't gossiped to everyone in our building about this, but since I've gotten mixed feedback from other concerned neighbors, I'll just ask here, am I in the wrong for saying no to my neighbor? Background. My neighbor and I have never gotten along since I moved into the building. The building is a condo that is professionally managed by a property management company, much like an apartment, but it also has an HOA that basically hires the management company. I'm not really in tune with the structure, but suffice to say the HOA makes up all the rules and the management company enforces them. My next door neighbor on my floor is a busybody who is both on the HOA board and involved in the Architecture and Improvements Committee. Part of the job of this committee is apparently to police decorating decisions of the residents to make sure what we do is in harmony with the safety and aesthetic standards of the community. She's already complained about the planters on my balcony, because they aren't in the right color, and about my Tinder friends, too many visitors to the board. I know because I have a friend who is on the board. I have long ago decided I want nothing to do with my nosy neighbor. Problem. I spent Friday night at my neighbor's, and he asked me to drop off his ballot because I was going on a jog the next day, and the drop box that is a couple miles from our building is en route. I agreed. In the morning, on my way back to my unit to freshen up for my morning jog, my neighbor caught me in the hallway on our floor, and she saw me holding a ballot envelope. She stopped me and asked if I would be a dear and drop off her ballot for her as well. I simply and politely said, sorry, I can't. I don't feel comfortable doing that. I had my reasons, but I didn't feel like going into them with her. First, she has complained about me on multiple occasions. There is no reason for me to go out of my way to help her. Second, she has proven herself to be the complaining type. I do not want to risk her accusing me of fraud or somehow mishandled her ballot should anything go wrong. She was angry and gossiped about my unwillingness to help her out, even though I was dropping off my ballots. I didn't tell her I was actually dropping off my friend's ballots. This morning, the HOA sent out an email reminding all of us to be cordial and kind to our neighbors despite these polarizing times. Now I'm wondering if I should have just taken her ballot too and dropped it off for her. Honestly, I can see where you're coming from on this one, and if she's being the gossiping type and being a harpy behind your back, there should be no expectation or obligation for you to drop off her ballots. I would be paranoid about what she says about me behind my back too, what she's going to get me in trouble for just because she wants to. It's better to just not take that risk. Sure, it could be nice, but every interaction I have with someone like that, I'd be like, what are they trying to get out of me? How could this go wrong? Where is Murphy's Law going to be applied to next? And in every situation, I would rather be safe than sorry. So screw that beer, I'm going home. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole? Only close family members are supposed to drop off ballots. Ignore the stupid emails and ignore your nosy neighbor. These laws vary a lot state by state. Unless the state has legislation on record allowing it, typically only a voter can mail their ballot or return it in person unless they have a disability and officially designate someone to do it for them. Always follow the directions on your ballot and reach out to your supervisor of elections if you have questions. If you don't know what to do or where to go, check out iwillvote.com. Source, I volunteer for the Biden campaign in my state, which prohibits it. There was a lawsuit a few weeks ago upholding the prohibition, in fact. Not the a-hole, at least in my state. It's illegal to drop off somebody else's ballot, though it's impossible to enforce. For all she knows, you were dropping off your own and doing nothing wrong, she can F off. I did drop my mums off, but proved that we lived together. They had a whole process and everything. Not the a-hole. I'm mad at reading that. Mad at Nosy Neighbor, the people that gossip with Nosy Neighbor, and mad at the HOA for sending out that email like you weren't cordial. Cordial doesn't mean saying yes all the time. It can mean politely declining. Exactly. You were cordial and kind. You don't have to do any favors to anyone to be cordial and kind. The fact that she gossiped about you and complained to the HOA means she was the one who was being neither cordial nor kind. A lot of people mistake cordial with bending over backwards to suit my current demands, while also willfully disregarding that being polite means actively not being an a-hole. Not the a-hole, OP. Posted by user Thorium Reactions, titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to refund a guy's food and permanently banning him after he realized he ordered food his religion does not permit him to eat? So I own a mid-sized cafe in a touristy town in a non-English speaking European country. So a lot of my customers are tourists, but we're also extremely popular with the locals and surrounding businesses, which is a blessing during these times as there are basically no tourists with the virus. To the extent where no matter the season, it's very rare we aren't full. This is not to toot my own horn, but rather to make it clear that the waitresses and cooks are busy as hell, even during these times, and need to be clearly told if someone can't have something. Now, a few days ago, a man, his wife, and their kid enter at about 5 p.m. Takeout order since you need to reserve to sit, as we got limited space due to restrictions. The woman was wearing a headscarf, so it was pretty clear they were Muslims, but I do the cooking, so I am not at the front. Well, their order comes in and they order 3 sandwiches, 2 of which have bacon. To be entirely clear, the menu has the ingredients behind each item on there in our language, English and German, so unless you do not know what bacon is, or didn't read, there is no way to miss it. Also, it's not a thing in my country to have waiting staff explain an order unless it's not on the menu. Seasonal stuff, specials, etc. We closed at 6 p.m, and just before closing, I hear yelling from the front as we're cleaning up. This guy is behaving highly aggressively, yelling and cursing in English, and some other languages, and I had to spend a good 5 minutes calming him down. When he told me what had happened, he demanded a refund and new sandwiches. He insisted he had told the waitress about his and his family's food restrictions, and that she had explained the order to him, which was what made me doubt his story. I asked the waitress what happened, and she said that he was full of crap, and just like with everyone, he went up to the front cash register, which we're using as the takeout spot, told her his order, and waited until he got it like everyone else. Obviously, I trust my staff over customers, so having had issues with tourists a lot in the past, I had cameras with sound installed. I told the guy I was going to check them, which caused him to go on another full-scale meltdown, at which point I was fresh out of patience, and I told him to get the F out, and him and his family were banned from the establishment. The reason I am asking for judgment is because I have since gotten 2 bad reviews referencing this occurrence, and my mum also said it was primarily on the waitress for being dumb, as Muslim dietary restrictions are common knowledge. Edit. Before I forget, as I feel it's relevant, the footage verified the waitress's story, and the food was mostly eaten, apart from one half of one of the sandwiches with bacon. I feel like this man had plenty of warning and plenty of time to see, hey, these sandwiches might have bacon. It's an unfortunate consequence of not doing your due diligence, and it's not the fault of the waitresses and the restaurant staff. The fact that it's been verified by the footage is the nail in the coffin for this one. The man is just looking for a fight because he wants someone to be angry at, and he got the fight, and now he's banned. I would combat those 2 bad reviews. I'm sure that there is a way to do it, and, if we can get a link to this stuff, I'd love to positivity bomb it, that's for sure. As it stands now, I'm going to go with not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. The onus is on him to know what he is ordering. It is unfair for someone to expect you or other staff members to know and anticipate every single dietary restriction everyone in the world has when they walk in. Seriously, what if he was a practicing Muslim who just happened to have a hankering for bacon? Or his wife was Muslim and he wasn't, or they were secular, or a million other reasons. I went to a Bengali Muslim wedding once, and one of the aunties and I had wine together. Alcohol is haram. You're not a mind reader, OP. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole? If he melted down further when you said you were going to check audio and video, then he was likely caught in a lie. I would welcome that if I knew I was telling the truth. I felt this was the case as well, hence kicking him out. Definitely. Lots of people believe that getting louder and more obnoxious is a ticket for free stuff, and practice it unabashedly. Well, for me, it's a sure way to get on my bad side. Good for you for standing up for your staff. I've worked for too many a-holes who would have caved immediately and blamed me to save face, even if they knew I was right. You are definitely not the a-hole here. Not the a-hole, unless it's stated by the customer that it isn't your problem. People pick and choose parts of their faith all the time. The dude was highly inappropriate. Well, even so, I don't agree with my mum too. Apart from tourists, there are barely any people of a different race here, let alone of a different religion. So it's perfectly possible that you wouldn't really know. Exactly. You're not expected to know everything about everyone. Posted by user Throwaway DH Kids. Titled, Am I the a-hole for taking pictures of my late husband's kids without asking their mum? So my husband passed away 4 years ago. Still, our home is just as much his kids, 15 and 17, as it is ours. They still have keys to the house, their own bedrooms, and spend a ton of time over. As they've gotten older and started driving themselves, the communication with their mum has dwindled a bit. I've invited her over, but she said we weren't close before he passed and will not be close now. Blunt, but honest, and I respect it. I adore these kids. I've known them since they were 1 and 3 years old. They have family. We hadn't had family photos done since before my husband got sick, so when I was ready to get new ones done, it seemed obvious that they would be in them. Their mum dropped off the youngest a bit before then, and I mentioned I was getting them. I didn't mention specifically that both my kids and her kids would be in them because I assumed she would assume so. We get the photos done. I ask the photographer to get some shots of just my bonus kids for their mum. We get the photos back and I get prints for her. I texted asking if she'd like me to drop them off while I was out or if it'd be better to send them home with my kids. She didn't respond until the next day and tells me I need to learn boundaries. We talked a bit. It wasn't a fight necessarily, but she said it made her uncomfortable. She said I wouldn't get professional photos of any of my kids' other friends without asking, and that it was weird. I was thrown off because, although our kids don't share DNA, they've always called each other brothers. They've been together since they were in diapers. She said that she loves that I love them like my own, but they aren't my own, and I overstepped. I feel like I shouldn't have had to ask. These weren't my boyfriend's kids I saw every other weekend. These are kids that were at our house just as much as their own. If my husband was alive, there would be no question that they would be in the pictures. If they were family then, why not now? I do want to say her and I have never had issues. She isn't just a bitter ex. I think she genuinely is uncomfortable with me not asking. I also think this is a little ridiculous. Am I the a-hole here? I guess this situation was a mix-up in communication, and it was a bit of a too little too late kind of situation. I don't think I can blame OP for getting the photos done. I don't think that's like a sacrilegious act by any standards. I'd say the onus is on the ex for not communicating properly and avoiding the questions and, assuming that the kids wouldn't be in the photographs. I feel like we're not getting a full grasp of the situation, but taking it at face value, I'm on the side of OP on this one. Like, genuinely, you have known these kids their entire life. They have lived with you in this house. You have known them for such a long time. Why is she, not okay with a few photos? They have rooms in your house, for God's sake. How much more connected can you get with these kids? Maybe something has come up recently with this ex, but this just seems like an out of left field quacky situation. And I don't know what's going on. I'd love to know the real reason for this. I'm gonna go with not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. This is absurd. Your husband's death didn't automatically take away your title of stepmother and erase your relationship with these kids. Don't you know biological mothers have automatic copyrights over their children's likenesses? Not the a-hole. I think if they were slightly younger, it might have been polite to just let her know, since she is their guardian, it sounds like. However, 15 and 17 is more than old enough to know whether you want to be in pictures or not. You weren't overstepping her boundaries. She's overstepping her kids' boundaries by trying to dictate who they can and cannot take pictures with. I think this might just be one of those things where in her eyes, they are little babies that need to be protected. Don't worry about it. You have done nothing wrong. If you want to, I suppose you could always just let her know that they were happy to be in the pictures, and you would never have wanted to hurt them by leaving them out. So you thought it should go without saying that they would be in them. That might calm the mama bear instincts a little. Lol. That's a good point that I didn't even think of. Thank you for that. I'll let her know that they were happy to be there. They did have a lot of fun, and I didn't have to drag them or try to force smiles, thankfully. No problem. Diplomacy is the art of creating ladders so that people can climb down gracefully. I've always heard it as, diplomacy is the art of telling someone to go to hell in a way that makes them think they'll enjoy the trip. Yours is so much more diplomatic. I prefer this version because Churchill is not exactly my favorite person, and he kind of sounds like a prick. Not the a-hole, they probably miss their dad a lot. Keep being a great person with all the kids. And OP says, thank you. Posted by user Zerhara, titled, Am I the a-hole for telling a friend's ex it's her fault? So, my best friend, 32 male, recently passed away. He was with a girl, Lana, 30 female, for 8 years, and engaged. He adored her. To say he supported her would have been an understatement. He got her clean, paid off her debts tens of thousands of dollars, paid for her law degree, and when she finished and didn't like the job, paid for her to study more. Bought her the house of her dreams, car, dogs, boob job, everything. Whatever she wanted, she got. He never did much for himself, so he was so devoted to her and his dogs, that was his family. He had a poor family life growing up and was determined to be different, and the love he had for her was unconditional. His happiness came from looking after the people he loved. He's been my best friend since we were 6 years old. We've been through everything, and she made him so happy. Then, about 18 months ago, her ex, 50 male, came back and started causing problems. He told me the ex wanted her back and she was using again. 2 weeks ago, he told me that she had admitted to being in a relationship with him and could he sign over the house and cars to her. He was broken to say the least. We rallied as friends to try and support him, but sadly it was not enough. Today at the funeral, she showed up with her ex/new partner and acted all sad and woe is me. That was not okay, but we kept our peace till she said to his mother, I thought he was happy. What would have caused this? I lost it and told her she did this. She broke his heart. He loved her through thick and thin. Even when she treated him like crap, he still loved her and she used and broke him. It's all her fault. This also exposed her cheating in front of his friends and family, but also her family who treated him like a son and were not aware of the affair. Am I the a-hole for blaming her and exposing her? No, she's hot garbage, and it should be her in his place instead of him, in my opinion. I'm just gonna say it now. She knows the man was vulnerable, she knows he had problems, she knows that he loved her unconditionally and gave her her life back, and she still went back to this 50-male ex of hers. I think all of her actions combined into one amalgamation is just despicable, and I think there's no coming back from that. Like, she led a man to suicide. That's not okay. I'd like to be an optimist and say, this is a fake story, but I feel like we see things like this all too often in the world, and it's just a sad state of affairs that people do this, continue to do this, and can live their lives happily and without a care in the world after they cause someone to do this. This woman is genuine scum. I'm surprised she showed up to the funeral after this. I'm surprised she can save face like she has. OP, not the a-hole. Everything you've done here is justified, and I do not blame you. Not the a-hole, but I wish he found someone better than that trash. By the way, what was the aftermath? All hell broke loose. Her dad went mental at the new partner and her. The mums were screaming and ended up turning on each other on who cared more. Luckily, his dad, who was never around most of his life, finally stepped up and semi-calmed things down and said she was welcome to stay, but he was not welcome and needed to leave. And that was when she leaves to hand over the keys for the house and cars, as he's left everything to charity. Yes, I'm glad they're getting back his hard-earned stuff. She doesn't deserve it in the slightest. Not the a-hole. Agreed. I do not know how she thought going to the funeral with her new partner was a good idea. Did she really not think that the truth behind her actions would not be revealed? Also, the fact that the friend who passed away left everything to charity, and now the girl who thought she could use him is now probably back at square one. Watch her find a new ATM, and then magically get back to X once someone has given her everything that is a necessity in life. The ex-girlfriend and her partner are just users and leeches. I'm not giving a judgment. My brother committed suicide last year, so I know the stress you, and more so his family, are under. What I'm about to say is biased on my unfortunate experiences and observations. Did her actions help contribute to his decision? Most likely. Was she solely responsible? No. Your friend made a decision, my brother made a decision. It wasn't rational or sane, but it was theirs. I do not begrudge you your anger. I can't and won't judge you for your or his family's grief. Anyone who tries is an a-hole. As long as you are not abusive, you do you. I cannot blame you for losing it at the funeral. The family had every right to know. I will say that you might want to pop by and check on them. I say this because your timing, while understandable due to her statement, wasn't the best. The wake/funeral is a surreal and frankly exhausting experience, and I only remember bits and pieces, as does the rest of my family. I would follow up and ask if they would like the whole story again. Grieving, while natural, is terrible. People do and say things they won't mean in 6 months. If anyone in the family is mad at you for your timing or adding another layer to everything, which was already overwhelming them, just give them time. I don't think this would happen because you've given them the perfect object to direct their anger, but I just want to warn you. On to you, suicide grief is different. I hope you talk to someone if you need to and find a survivors of support group. Here is a link to a really helpful info packet on suicide loss. I invite you to check out the sub r/suicide bereavement. You're welcome to participate or just lurk. I'm so sorry you've joined our crappy club. Posted by user AmiTheA throwaway 76437. Titled, Am I the a-hole for expecting my sister to watch my daughter without pay? I have never posted on the sub, so please be kind if I make a mistake. I recently moved back to my hometown after a rough divorce in order to be closer to family. I have full custody, he has no interest in being a father, and my daughter is 4 years old. I never stopped working, thank God, and have a full-time job. My daughter is at daycare 3 days a week, and my parents watch her the other 2 days. This past weekend, my parents were out of town and there was an emergency at work. I was called in with an hour notice and immediately called my sister, who lives about 10 minutes away, to see if she could watch my daughter. She said she could, but her rate was $30 an hour. I was absolutely shocked that she asked for money. I know she herself isn't planning on having kids, but she has always seemed happy to be an aunt. I knew it would be at least a 10-hour day, and I can't afford to just drop $300 unexpectedly right now. I begged her to take her without the fee, but she refused, claiming that her time was worth money. I ended up hanging up on her and calling a friend who lives quite a bit farther out. My friend happily took my daughter for the day, no expectation of pay. I was late to work though, and got a write-up because I had to drive so much farther. My sister ended up calling me yesterday to chat, totally unbothered by what had happened. I told her that I was upset at her and didn't want to talk, and she unloaded on me. She told me that I was the one in the wrong for just expecting her to be free childcare. I told her that it was horrible of her to want money to spend a day with her niece, and that I was going through a difficult time, emotionally and financially, and she was being unsupportive and selfish. We ended the call on a sour note and haven't spoken again since. Until yesterday, I didn't think for a second that I was wrong to be upset. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect your own sister to help out once in a blue moon without needing to pay her. I also think it's hypocritical of her, considering she has 3 dogs that I used to watch for her when she vacationed without any pay. That was years ago, before I moved out, but I feel like she should remember that. Am I really the a-hole here like my sister says? Edit. I took a break from this thread due to the hundreds of cruel and abusive comments and DMs I received. To answer your questions, 1. My sister has never babysat my daughter before. She was born when my ex and I were living across the country. I moved back home 1 month ago, and my parents are my backup childcare. 2. Yes, my job is crappy, and my boss is crappy. My industry was hit hard, and unemployment is high. I apply for every other job I can find, but no luck. 3. When my boss called, they said, "You need to be here in an hour tops or there will be consequences." I was extremely stressed when I called my sister. And 4. I brought up the dog sitting because I wanted to illustrate that we used to have the kind of relationship where favors were done without a fee. I was absolutely blindsided when she asked for money. Update for those who care. My sister ended up telling my parents about what happened, and she got chewed out. They called me and told me they were ashamed of her behavior. Take what you will from that. I guess you can have some justification in your crazy, wacky world that this is an everyone sucks here situation, but seeing that this is the situation OP was in, and they're being forced to go to work in an hour tops when they weren't rostered on and they had no way to get that kid to childcare, in an appropriate manner, I just am dumbfounded by the sister. They've never looked after the kid before, OP has done favors for them before, and now she's charging $30 an hour just to look after this kid when it's an emergency that OP is in. They are going to get in trouble from their work and they can't find jobs elsewhere. Can you not have a little compassion and think, hey, maybe I should do her a favor this one time. This is an absolute rare circumstance. This doesn't happen often. I'm going to open up my heart for her. But instead, no, you want her to open up your wallet for her at a ridiculous rate. I would understand if it's other individuals that she asks for babysitting on a, regular basis, but can we not make an exception for this one time? I feel so bad for OP. I don't see how they're the a-hole in this situation. This would freak me out and stress me out to no end. I don't know where you work, but getting called in, but then written up for how long it took because you're arranging childcare is amazingly crappy of them. You were mad at the wrong people. Edit to add, everyone sucks here from what you've said, but your job can do this to you. You need a plan in place ahead of time. And your sister, if available, could have been a sport and helped you out if this is the first and only time it's happened so far. But it would have been a huge favor, and definitely you would owe her something. This was my thoughts too. They gave her very little notice, and I'm assuming they know she has a child. Writing her up was uncalled for. What if there was nobody who could babysit on such short notice? What would OP and her employer do then? This, I would have refused to sign the write-up. Last minute call in to an employee they know has a small child, and then they tramp on that OP was a little bit late? No effing way would I take that write-up lying down. That being said, my vote is everyone sucks here. OP is an a-hole for thinking childcare should be free. People have a right to choose if they want to be paid or not. Her management is an a-hole, and the sister is an a-hole for charging $30 an hour. That's a crazy amount of money per hour, and it's more than twice the minimum wage in my state. I get that it was last minute for the sister too, but it absolutely does not warrant $30 an hour, for F's sake. Let's be real. Her asking for $30 an hour while knowing her sister's situation was her way of saying no without actually having to say no. And OP phrases it like it's a prize. Horrible to want money for spending a day with her niece. It's not playtime, it's childcare, and it's work, especially for someone who is child-free, like OP's sister. I actually think the sis was the a-hole. A family member was in a bind, and she didn't help. And what's worse, she tried to extort her help at an exorbitant fee, rather than just saying, "I'm sorry, I can't watch her for you today." Not the a-hole. It's completely reasonable to ask a family member to help you out in an emergency situation. If your sister just said no, she can't watch your kid, then it would be no a-holes here. And if she had asked for a reasonable childcare rate, that would have been fine too. But asking for $30 an hour is screwed up and self-centered. And next time she needs a favor, feel free to quote back to her any sky-high price that comes to mind. I'm willing to bet she'll be incredibly ticked off about it and claim that you should just help her out because family. I find it funny that Reddit often quotes, "It takes a village," but then continues with this very selfish mentality of, "You don't owe anyone anything." Which one is it? It's almost like you have multiple opinions when you have millions of users, and once one side gains a little traction, the other is scared of speaking because of downvotes. Posted by user FreeToBeX2, titled, "Am I the a-hole for hacking my mum's Instagram to see if she violated NDA? I'm a nanny for a high-profile family. I signed a very extensive and strict NDA. Anyone directly involved in my life, mum, dad, sis, and husband, also signed an NDA. The nanny recommended this to talk about the job without getting into any legal risk or putting them at risk. Recently, ran into one of my parents' neighbors, Amber, at the park. Amber asked how the new job was going, then proceeded to ask specifics about how it must be working for a family where the parents are, insert their jobs here. A direct violation of the NDA, and something I could be fired and sued for. My dad isn't the sharing type, like, at all, so I figured it was probably my mum. I asked her about it in a casual way. Hey, how's Amber, kinda way. I said I ran into Amber at the park, and that it was odd because she knew details about my job without me telling her. My mum simply shrugged and said, that's funny. Maybe she Googled or saw something on social media? My dad and sister absolutely hate Amber. They essentially said hell would have to freeze over before they spoke to her willingly. My dad ended our convo where I asked him about it by saying, "The only thing I know about her is that her son just made partner at a law firm in New York and is making bank, and that's only because mum saw it on Instagram and told me about it." Right then, I knew my mum lied to me and it was her. She and Amber love to one-up each other with their children's success, and I also just landed a great new job. I asked my mum about it again, and she told me that I was being dramatic, making stuff up, and that she would never do that to me. My mum doesn't text people, only DMs on Instagram. I know her password, so logged in to check her messages. There was an extremely long DM to Amber, where she shared their professions, children's names, ages, private school, general locations of their homes, how they pay really well, etc. Everything that we are legally not allowed to say, she said. I called her immediately and said that I logged into her DMs and saw the message she sent to Amber that was a violation. She started screaming at me about how she's supposed to be able to trust her daughter, she can't believe I hacked into her Instagram, that mothers should be allowed to brag about their children, and then she hung up. It has been a week without contact between the two of us. We used to speak every single day. I am starting to believe that maybe I'm the a-hole here for violating her trust like that. My husband says if anyone violated trust here, it is her, and that I gave her ample opportunity to tell the truth before I intervened and sought out the truth myself. He constantly reminds me that they could sue us into the ground and fire me for endangering my nanny's family's well-being. Because, truthfully, Amber could easily be a psycho fan or sell the information to someone who is. So, am I the a-hole? If there is an NDA in place, your mum should know that she doesn't share that information. How many times is it going to take to get that through her thick skull? People have to take NDAs very seriously because of the repercussions of sharing that information. If you hired a hacker to get that password and figure out the truth from her, I would still not think that you're the a-hole here, because that is information that you are legally required to protect, and she intentionally went out of her way to share it, gaslight you, and deflect blame, saying, "Oh God, I would never share that. What do you mean?" Liar, liar, pants on fire. Screw the mum, you did what you had to do, you're not the a-hole. Not the a-hole? Your mum crossed the line and could end up costing you your job. I would be livid. And it could put the kids at risk if they're high profile enough that the nanny's whole family had to sign NDAs and info on them is private enough that it could be sold to the media. Came here to say that it would have been bad enough, breach of a legal contract, to share that you worked for the parents and what they do. But sharing detailed info on the kids? That's irresponsible in my opinion. You have every right to be ticked off, and you are absolutely not the a-hole. Glad to hear you have a lawyer and are sorting this out. Hope you keep your job and keep us updated. She shared the general locations of their homes. I'm screaming. Also, OP, I think you can unsend messages on Instagram. If that's possible, then I would see if you can delete it so at least this other lady can't go back and access this. Hopefully, she's not such an a-hole that she would screenshot it. Not the a-hole, I would recommend a CYA and tell the family what your mum did and how you responded so that they know you didn't have anything to do with it. Honestly, if I were OP, I'd consider telling them what happened and how you handled it, and also tell them to take her to court for breaking the NDA. Unless mum gets some consequences for what she did, she'll just keep doing it. And OP replies, "That's the part that kills me. She should face consequences because she's a grown-ass adult and should know better. She's also my mum though, you know? Hard to separate the two. Honestly, I doubt I'll lose my job because of my mum sharing the info. There is a stipulation about how I can share any information pertaining to my job, with the exception of work or health-related issues, with those who also signed an NDA, aka my mum, husband, dad, and sister. That way I can have someone to vent to. Technically, my mum violated her NDA, I didn't violate mine. It's the violation of trust with the family that might get me fired because someone I love betrayed them. That's hard to cope with, and if I get fired for that, then I'll understand. I love the family and kids, and just want what's best for them. If that's not me because of this, then I'll accept it." Posted by user, "Would I be the a-hole wedding Christmas?" Titled, "Am I the a-hole for not letting my ex have the kids on Christmas because he won't let them attend my wedding?" I have 2 kids from a previous relationship. I'm engaged to my partner. After postponing our planned wedding, I had a fight with my family and our guest list shrunk to almost nothing, so we decided to just get married without the wedding. We have to be married by February anyway, and we're planning something small in January, but with the guest list issue, we decided courthouse was the way to go. We tried to book in with a registrar, but with the holidays coming up and everything going on, our options were either the 27th of December or March 2021. So we booked on the 27th. According to the custody agreements, I'm meant to have the kids from the 22nd to the 28th of December, with custody switching back on the 28th. However, I don't celebrate Christmas, as I'm Jewish, so my ex and I agreed to swap weeks, so he got the 22nd to the 28th. However, I told my ex that my partner and I had to book in with a registrar on the 27th, and asked if we could switch the custody on the 27th instead of the 28th, so that the kids can attend my wedding. He's refused. He said that it's not his fault that I booked for his week with the kids, and that I should have taken that into consideration when I booked the registrar. He also says that he has family coming for Christmas, so he wants the kids with him for as much time as possible, as his extended family rarely sees the kids, once a year at most, and are all leaving on the 28th and 29th. I asked him to reconsider and offered solutions, like suggesting that he just let me have them for a couple of hours on the 27th, then I'll bring them back to him and pick them up on the 28th as usual. He's refused, saying that it's not his problem and I should have scheduled my wedding on time. At this point, my fiancé pointed out that the wedding is on my time, according to our formal custody agreement, as I'd only ever agreed informally to switch the weeks, so I would be well within my rights to say that I wanted to go back to the original schedule, meaning I would have the kids 22nd to the 28th. I've messaged my ex, saying that I don't want to switch weeks after all. I'll have the kids from the 22nd to the 28th, and he can have them for the new year, as set out in our formal custody agreement. X is furious, says I can't do this to him. We made a deal, he has family coming based on our agreement, and I have to switch back. I've said that I don't have to do anything, according to our formal agreement, and he shouldn't have been a dick about it. He has now said that if I give him back that week, he will let the kids go to my wedding. But I've said I want to stick to the formal agreement from now on, as I no longer trust he will allow the kids to go. He called me a few names and hung up. Fiancé says that now my ex has agreed to let them come, if we switch back, he doesn't see the harm in letting my ex have Christmas back, as we won't be doing anything special, and the kids would like to see ex's family. Am I the a-hole for not switching? Edit: if I had the kids over Christmas, they would still have Christmas. We wouldn't just let the 24th and 25th pass by without any celebration. It would definitely be more muted than it would with my ex, because I would have already given them gifts at Hanukkah, but I'd still do something. I wouldn't stop my kids celebrating Christmas altogether. The way I see it, there really is no winning in this situation, because your ex played his hand at the start there, and this is just one of those messy situations where no one can come to an agreement on this. If I were you, I'd suck up being an a-hole in this situation to get what you need to do, because you are ultimately doing him a solid by having an informal agreement go through, but then requesting you have them for your wedding for one part of a day, and him playing hardball and saying, no, I get them and you don't get them. I can definitely see where he's coming from. He has every right to play that hardball, but I don't think he should be surprised when you rescind those rights and go back to the formal agreement. Yes, you suck by depriving the family of seeing the two kids over Christmas and they're not going to see them again for another year, but he's not without blame either. He's put the kids into that situation also. This is a messy family dispute and everyone sucks here. The only people you are hurting are your children. Both of your children. They are not pawns to use when you're angry and you guys have a lot of years to go until they're 18. You're the a-hole. This. Don't be petty when it comes to your children. Let them celebrate Christmas too. Yes, you are absolutely in the right to force your ex's hand like this, but now that he has agreed with your original terms, you should relent for the sake of your kids. It will make them happier and show them a lesson in mercy. Just get it in writing from him, with your lawyer's help, so that he can't renege at the last second. Going to rule everyone sucks here, because your ex definitely sucks, and you suck for thinking of using your kids as pawns. This, get it in writing with proper witnesses, and make it clear that you are doing him a huge favor, even though he was trying to be a dick. Although, you're actually not, you are doing it for the kids, but I'd still be peeved at him. I don't want to judge this, but you should really consider your children in all of this. At some point, the pettiness needs to stop if you guys want to successfully co-parent. I understand not trusting him to honor the agreements, so you should put down the change in your writing and have both parties sign. It might not have the force of law, but it could deter him from reneging on the deal if you let him know that if he backs out, you can and will use it as evidence that he is being petty to revisit the formal custody agreement. Judges will typically consider that. Best of luck and congrats on the wedding. Edited to add, when I say revisit the formal custody agreements, I mean modifying it to allow for some flexibility, like saying parents can request X amount of reasonable schedule changes in a fixed time period that are dependent on the circumstances. You guys shouldn't have to formalize this type of stuff, but it might be necessary if parties can't stop being petty. And OP replies, we've been talking about changing the custody agreement for a while now, but the kids are in their routine at this stage. Unless I could get this Christmas specifically added into the agreements, there wouldn't really be any way to enforce it, and I don't know how much weight it would hold in court. The absolute last thing I want to do is punish the kids. It's frustrating because when we went through custody the first time, I tried to get it written so that I got Hanukkah and he got Christmas every year. But my ex refused, and now he gets pissy when he doesn't get Christmas. And you say, the absolute last thing I want to do is punish the kids, and yet here we are. Posted by user OKGap594, titled, Am I the a-hole for holding my stepsister's mother's ashes until she returns my dog to me? Throw away because this whole drama is stupid, I am ashamed of it. I, 20 female, was temporarily living with my mother, stepfather, and stepsister, 14. Me and my stepsister were never close. She hates me and my mother, thinking that my mother stole her father away after her own mother passed. It has been that way for 4 years already, and while she is in slightly better terms with my mother, she still constantly tries to disturb me because I am not as tolerant as my mother. As for my stepfather, he is quite okay, but he would pretend to ignore me in front of my stepsister sometimes because she would throw a fuss about it. I was supposed to move to a rather far away place to work and study. My father arranged for me to move in after renovations are done, bringing my dog with me. When I first brought my dog to my mother's a few months ago, my stepsister seemingly fell in love with him. At first, it was just me taking care of him. Then we took turns taking him out. For a while, I even thought that we could have gotten along better because we both loved the dog. And one day, my sister returned without my dog and announced that she had given him away, just to spite me. She got what she wanted, and no matter how nicely or nastily I asked her, she wouldn't tell me where she took him. I complained to my mother and stepfather, but they couldn't get her to talk either. She had this attitude of try me whenever she gets stubborn. I was to move in 2 days, and I guess she wanted to keep my dog for herself or make me miss my cross-country train. I know it's despicable, but I was worried for my pup, and whatever she could have done with him. I sneaked into her room when she was not looking and took her mother's ash urn. I know this was precious to her, precious enough to be used to make her talk. I hid the urn somewhere that she would never find. Sure enough, my stepsister lost it completely when she realized what I did, and similarly, I'd never talk no matter what my mother or stepfather say. After all that screaming and crying, she finally gave in and admitted that she brought him to her friends. After taking the trip and passing my dog back to me, she demanded to have the urn back, but I did not tell her until my day of departure, in case she wanted to pull some sick prank again. Everybody I know of, including my own father, thinks that I took it too far, while in the end, nothing really bad happened. I did it in the worst way possible, quoted by my mother who did nothing to help either. It was my stepsister who started it. She knew how important my pup is to me, and she tried to take him away from me. So I used a similar way to make her return him, and it worked. I didn't do it out of spite, just making use of what I could to get my dog back. So in this case, am I the a-hole? No, I agree with your methods on this one. If you knew this was one of the only ways to get her to reveal the location of your dog, knowing that she was so adamant and so stubborn, Absolutely, go for it. It's nuclear, it's, dick-headed, but it's justified. You didn't do anything with the ashes, you struck fear into her heart, and you got what you needed in the end. Maybe it could be an everyone sucks here situation, but she struck first, you struck back just as hard, you got what you needed to, and the dog is safe. It didn't look like she was going to give you the dog back, and she was just going to continuously hold that against you, and that's evil. At least you gave the ashes back, and it's not like she was never going to see those again. I'm going with justified, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. She did this to herself, and shame on her for bringing an innocent animal into her personal feud. The reason others don't get it is because they don't have a bond with the dog as you do. They just see it as another dog. Agreed, not the a-hole. I also think Opie's relationship with her parents and stepsister is just nuked at this point. If her parents enabled her stepsister to steal her dog and just be too stubborn to give it back, that's horrendous behavior that they threw their hands up for. Opie needs a therapist to probably unpack whatever else harmful her parents have likely taught her in regards to her stepsister over OP. Jumping on the first comment to say, maybe next time your stepfather or mum go at you, you could answer, you know what? You're right. Next time, if I choose to continue my contact with you or stepsister, I will involve the police and press charges against her. That way, we can have an outside party deal with this, since it's obvious you won't. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole, but damn, your parents need to step it up. She's a problem. To be honest, I wish OP called the cops on them all for robbery and kidnapping. Cops would throw their hands up and say, this is a civil matter, and leave. Dogs are property, and theft is a criminal matter. Yes, but the difference between what cops are technically supposed to do and what they actually do is obviously very large. Which is why no one should call the cops on anyone whose lives they aren't willing to completely destroy, and why it's always a little disturbing to see comments proposing they be involved. I would honestly consider ransoming the dead mother's ashes a calmer and more measured course of action. Not the a-hole. Congrats to you for finding a creative solution. However, this does mean probably never letting anyone in your extended family into your home for more than a minute, as a precedent for ransoming has now been established. Watch your back, still worth it though. Posted by user ThatOneGuy17288. Titled, Am I the a-hole for kicking out my sister, brother-in-law, and their kids after months of living in chaos? Now, during the middle of the pandemic, my brother-in-law got laid off, and because they could no longer afford rent, my sister, her husband, and their 3 kids, aged 5 to newborn, moved in with me. I, 22 male, live in a small flat, but since I work nights and sleep most of the day, it's sorta like they live in the flats and I'm just some random guy. I understand that kids are very hard to take care of, but I expected my sister to at least try and keep the flat clean. That would be a hard no, since every time I come home, there is dirty dishes all over the place and toys on the floor, and it just smells awful. I don't know what it is, and neither does my sister, evidently, but it's terrible. The eldest coloured all over the wall and spilt juice all over my rug. She also broke several fragile glass figurines that I inherited from my mother, who has passed away. My sister, we don't share the same mother, disregarded all of these things, and when I got upset, just told me to get over it because her kid didn't mean it. I've had to get rid of a chair because the second eldest vomited all over it, and nothing that save it. The youngest cried a lot, and it understandably irritated my neighbours, who never said anything to the landlady, but did come over multiple times to complain. I have sat my sister down and explained my frustrations to her multiple times, but she just doesn't care. I've tried to explain everything to my brother-in-law, but he is rarely home, despite not having a job yet, even though it's been months. The kids were up at the same time that I was asleep, and they constantly ran in and out of my room, screaming their little heads off. I love them, really, but I couldn't deal with that, especially since you have to be alert and present in my line of work as a security guard. The final straw for me was that somebody, more than likely the eldest child, let loose my leopard geckos. It took hours, and although I finally managed to find all of them, it was the straw that broke the camel's back, and I told my sister that she had to leave and that I couldn't take it anymore. It's been a week since then. I have gotten no word from my sister, but the rest of our family have been calling non-stop, demanding to know how I could just kick my niece and nephews out onto the street. Am I the a-hole? That entire situation sounds like a nightmare, and it's an unfortunate circumstance that they find themselves in, but those are all problems that the two parents refuse to fix, and I would refuse to be in the middle of it if they continue to enable that behavior. It's another repeat of the, oh my god, we don't want to look after these people. How dare you kick them onto the street? Now they might potentially be our problem. How dare you? We hate you. Ignore those people and let this family that you've kicked out move on to the next safety blanket until reality bites them. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole? If your family is so worried, they can take them in themselves. A small flat is no place for a family of 5. I'm wondering what the brother-in-law does all day considering he doesn't have a job. Definitely not the a-hole because you are getting noise complaints, and on top of that, they are destroying your property and your flat. They should have been thankful they had a free place to stay, yet a single flat for 6 people is ridiculous. Maybe she should parent her kids better and not expect you to just go with it, because the kid that mean break something, whatever that means. This is a nightmare scenario. No. Of course you are not the a-hole, and I hope you know that. I never will understand family who call to shame others for taking someone in. If you feel so strongly about it, take them in yourself. Oh wait. Posted by user, Am I the a-hole? 1. Titled, Am I the a-hole for correcting the CEO after he mispronounced my ethnic name and embarrassing my boss? So I, 22 female, recently started working at a large company, and a few days ago, the CEO briefly joined our Zoom call for the first time. We were thoroughly warned about this special occasion, and my boss repeatedly told us what an honor it is that the CEO decided to pay our team a visit. He gave us plenty of instructions on how to behave in preparation for this. So the CEO just made a few generic welcome on board comments to us recent grads, and I thought that would be the end of it. But then he greeted me and asked me how I'm settling in. Well, he absolutely butchered my name. For the record, I'm mixed race, white and Kenyan. I have a Swahili name that people generally struggle to pronounce. So before I answered his question, I corrected him, and he mispronounced it again. He asked me if he got it right, and I said no, so I slowed down my speech and told him exactly how to pronounce it, but he just kept messing it up. So I decided to use the whiteboard feature on Zoom and typed out how to pronounce my name, syllable by syllable. Example, Alexia, Alexia. He finally got it right, and I jokingly said, "You get an A for that." Then I noticed that my boss looked very ticked. He apologized and said I'm new and still adjusting to the environment. Afterwards, my boss spoke to me in private and I got chewed out. He said that my behavior wasn't professional and that I basically embarrassed him in front of the CEO. He said that I should have let the mistake slide instead of turning the situation into a spectacle. On top of that, he was angry that I jokingly told the CEO that he got an A, as that was disrespectful and deeply inappropriate. I thought I was in serious trouble, but during lunch I received an email from the CEO himself. He was super friendly and asked me to send him monthly email updates on how I'm getting on. He also encouraged me to reach out to him if I have any questions or concerns. I was kind of surprised. So now I'm wondering, am I a petty a-hole for quote-unquote wasting everyone's time, as my boss put, and correcting the CEO? I've never worked a corporate job like this, so I can't really speak on behalf of experience here, Perhaps the boss was just erring way too much on the side of caution and doesn't know the CEO enough. Maybe they just have this idea that the CEO would be upset by correcting the name? Who knows? But really, you were just doing him a solid, and he wanted to pronounce the name properly. I think you read the room properly, and the boss didn't, and they're just overcorrecting and being like, oh my god, you're gonna get me fired, you're gonna get everyone in trouble, what's wrong with you? Who knows what this person is thinking in their oversensitive minds, but obviously the CEO is friendly. Gonna go with not the a-hole. Not the a-hole for correcting the CEO on the pronunciation. Whether you were the a-hole for adding the last comment about receiving an A, all depends on the vibe of the call. If your team was joking around with the CEO and it was casual, definitely not the a-hole. If it was a very formal meeting, then you could be the a-hole here, but just for the last comment. Pronouncing someone's name correctly is one of the most basic signs of respect. Every boss or company should show respect to their employees. Be careful with your new boss, but the CEO sounds great. Definitely can, but can we also give props to the CEO? Whether big or small, I appreciate anyone who takes the time to show the little bit of respect, and the fact he didn't brush them off and continue says a lot of their character. I agree. My coworkers and I discussed that he's actually a lot nicer and down to earth than our boss portrayed him to be. Later in the email, he said some nice things, and even my boss was never this nice, lol. Oh yeah. Definitely got that from your boss trying to ream you out, giggity. Some people focus so much on the illusion of control, it's astounding anything gets done. Not the a-hole, only because the CEO was cool about it all. You might have been wrong in the you get an A comments, and maybe need to be careful of that, but it's always okay to correct someone when they mess up your name. Yeah, I see your points. I got the impression he wouldn't mind a joke like that, so just went with it. And he laughed, so I guess I didn't entirely F up. But yeah, know your audience. In future, I think I'll be more cautious though. Sounds like you did know your audience and the risk paid off. I have a hunch the reason your CEO wants updates is they're worried about the treatment you may receive from your boss. I feel like I'm too inexperienced to understand the dynamics of the situation. Like, I have no idea if I messed up the relationship with my boss, and how the incident reflected on me. Posted by user RaidAing, titled, Am I the a-hole for not giving my sister the ring that our late grandmother gave to me? My grandmother passed away 3.5 years ago of cancer. She was the rock of the family, and her loss hit everybody hard. My older sister at the time was estranged and wasn't in contact with the family. A few weeks before my grandmother passed away, she gave me her wedding ring and made me promise to hold on to it until I got married and wore it myself. Eventually, my sister came back around and was obviously devastated to hear about our grandmother's death. She didn't seem too bothered with me having the ring at first, but recently she's gotten engaged to her fiancé and wants the ring. My sister, apparently, told her fiancé that she was going to get a ring, and so he didn't bother with anything but a cheap, simple gold band. She approached me the other day and said that she wants the ring, but I was obviously not going to give it up. My sister essentially told me that she deserves the ring since she was a better granddaughter, and that she is getting married first, so she is entitled to it just by that fact. I am dead set on keeping it because obviously, it's my grandmother's ring, and I want it for when I get married. Just to be clear, I have a boyfriend, but we're going slow. Am I being an a-hole for not giving up the ring? Your sister was estranged from the family, your grandmother promised it to you, you're upholding that promise. I think your sister is pushing way too many boundaries by trying to get you to renege on that and try to get herself a free wedding ring. Perhaps the sister and the grandmother had a great relationship, stronger than yours, before she passed, but I imagine if that were to be the case, she would have promised the wedding ring to the sister, even if the sister was estranged. I guess it's a case of we don't have all the facts. On face value for this one, I'm gonna go with not the a-hole. It's your ring now, you can do what you want with it. And if you don't want to give it to her, you don't have to. Not the a-hole. Your sister sounds like an entitled little brat. Your grandmother wanted you to have it. That's why she gave it to you instead of your sister. If she was the better granddaughter, then she would have had a relationship with your grandmother rather than finding out she died well after the fact. This right here. If grandmother wanted sister to have it simply because sister was the eldest, then she could have stipulated that fact. Obviously, being the eldest wasn't the deciding factor. Exactly. I'm the only daughter of a daughter, and I got most of Nana's jewelry because she wanted it to go down the female line. It sucked for the other girls, but they all got other belongings as per her wishes. Not the a-hole, 100%. Your grandmother gave that ring to you. You also said your sister was estranged from the family, so I'm not quite sure how she was somehow the better granddaughter. The ring is yours to do with as you wish, but you might want to hide it somewhere safe. Even put it in a lockbox or a bank safe if you don't trust your sister to not take it when you are not looking. Don't give in. She's just trying to bully you now because she's promised her fiancé something that wasn't hers to promise. Her problem, not yours. Posted by user Zealous Ideal Ring 74. Titled, Am I the a-hole for letting my dad use the bathroom? So, weird post, I get it. My wife has been going to therapy and trying to work through a lot of stuff. She writes all over our bathroom walls, which I wish she didn't, but it helps her, and at the end of the day, it's pretty easy to paint a wall if we need to move. We don't really have people over because of her anxiety, but I have told her that it makes me uncomfortable because what if we have some type of repairman and he asks to use the bathroom? Well, my car finally broke down, and I'm going to be getting a new one in a couple of days, but I needed some help, so my dad agreed to pick me up from work. He lives about 45 minutes from my work and 30 minutes from the house, so I really appreciate it. When we got to my house, he came in to say hi to the kids, and then he wanted to use the bathroom before he left. I didn't know what to say because it would be so rude not to let him after he helped me out, so I didn't know how to explain it without telling him why, so I just let him use it. Yeah, he was in there a long time, and when he came out, he was trying so hard not to laugh. I know he's probably going to have a good laugh with my mum, but I don't even know anymore. I mentioned it to my wife. She was livid. She said I betrayed her, and that she had written stuff about how much she hates my mum, which I didn't know. She is still mad at me for breaking her trust, but I feel like it's kind of her fault because I told her not to do it in the bathroom. I'm torn between no one's an a-hole here and you're an a-hole for this situation. I know that writing on the bathroom wall is part of her therapy, but you're eventually going to have someone in the house, and either you're going to want to cover that up or keep it there, and people are going to read it if you have people over. You can't just not let them use the bathroom. I feel like that would be rude. This is a kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't situation for the husband, and I don't blame him for letting his dad use the bathroom. I would too, and just be prepared for a little bit of fallout. But now that I think of it, maybe it's a no a-holes here at all situation. I don't think OP did this in a vindictive way. Not the a-hole. Your dad drove over an hour to help you out and made a completely reasonable request to use your bathroom. We're gonna send him to the nearest gas station? No. People have quirks and your wife's is writing on the bathroom walls. It's absurd to think that she could keep that hidden, and legit she could try to modify her behavior if she is so embarrassed by it. Put a whiteboard up and call it a day. I had a blackboard wall as a child and loved it. The paint is not too expensive, and a small space wouldn't be oppressively dark. Not the a-hole. Was your dad supposed to go out in the yard? Your wife needs to get a notebook and stop using the walls. Is there only one bathroom? Do your kids read this stuff? It can't be healthy for them to have this going on as normal. Only one bathroom, but thankfully they can't read yet. The eldest can read a little, but she writes in cursive. Good luck teaching them not to scribble all over the walls, at home and elsewhere. with this as an example of what is normal. As someone who suffers from terrible anxiety, your wife needs more or different therapy than she is getting, because this sounds positively unhinged. Posted by user throwaway7282828. Titled, Am I the a-hole for ignoring my roommate after she accused me of saying the N-word? Throwaway because my roommate knows my Reddit. I, 18 female, am currently dorming with another roommate, 19 female, at college. Due to restrictions still going on in our area, students that are dorming can't go off campus too much. Since my family and I decided that it was safer for me to be in limited contact with them physically, I call them almost daily. So does my roommate. She speaks in English, and sometimes in Spanish when she calls her parents and siblings. I speak in Punjabi and Hindi, since my parents and I don't necessarily communicate in English at all. 3 days ago, I was on the phone with my mum. My roommate was in the room with me. We are both fine with talking to family while the other person is in the room. While my mum was on the phone with me, we started joking about something. All I remember is that I said something along the lines of, "Mum, I can't take college anymore. If I have to stare at my computer for 1 more hour, I swear my eyesight is going to go away permanently." For those that don't speak Hindi or Punjabi, the word for eyesight sounds like the N-word. It doesn't mean anything bad, it literally just means eyesight. I grew up speaking those languages. It didn't even register in my head until my roommate brought up that the word even sounded like a racial slur. She started cursing me out the minute I said that. I quickly told my mum that I would call her back and asked my roommate what was wrong. At first I was concerned, but then she kept saying that I said the N-word, and I didn't even process it until I thought really hard about what I had said. Eventually, I did explain. I told her what I said meant eyesight. When she didn't believe me, we pulled out Google Translate and verified. I even called a friend of mine in the same building as us and had her confirm. Apparently, she said she believed me after that. But today, the minute I woke up, she demanded an apology. She said I made her feel unsafe and that she couldn't trust me anymore. That is my language. Not everything is a direct translation to a racial slur. After I told her that, she started cursing me out again. I started ignoring her at that moment, but then she threatened to tell the RA. I think she wrote an email to the RA, so I'm not sure what to do now. I called my parents, and they told me that I was right. My roommate, on the other hand, told her own parents, and they think that I deserve a penalty. She told her other friends and gave them my number, and I've been getting nothing but hateful messages and racial slurs being directed at me. At this point, I really don't know if I was in the right. I feel like I should have just sucked up my pride and apologized, but even then, it's not like I did anything wrong. I'm really conflicted about this. What if I make this same mistake later on in public? What do I do then? So Reddit, am I the a-hole? I really do think she's just oversensitive to things that sound like the N-word when you are obviously speaking in your native language. I don't even think you've left anything out of the story. I feel like this is true word for word, and that they're the one with the problem, not you. If it's obvious that you're speaking in your native tongue, no one's gonna come at you and be like, "Oh my god, you're attacking people of a certain race by using that word." You're clearly on the phone or you're talking to a friend. The context of these situations will determine, how people react to it. This just seems like a very petty and personal attack on you by the roommates, and I would just ignore her or report her if you can. Not the a-hole. Update. Thank you so much for those that gave advice and reassurance. Is that the right word? I've come to the realization that much more has been happening. Sorry for annoying y'all with an unnecessary post. The RA said that it was a personal issue between roommates and there was no need to involve her. I even showed her the texts I saved. In regards to other actions, RA has repeatedly been discriminatory to me before, telling me that I need to take off my turban. So has roommates, and she even goes as far as to jokingly pull it off my head. I will now be contacting a student representative and reporting both my roommate and the RA. Thank you all. Update 2. Since a lot of people asked, I used the word nigah. Some people commented the word nazar, and while I do use it in formal settings, or that's how I was taught, I use the first word more casually. Others have provided the words binai or nin, I believe, and I've never heard of those words in my entire life until now. Perhaps it's due to regional differences, I'm not too sure. Not the a-hole. The world doesn't revolve around the English language. OP needs to write this on a giant poster and hang it up on their door for all to see. Hang up some lemon and green chilies to ward off that buri nazar, evil eye, coming your way too for a little tongue-in-cheek humor. A lot of Americans lose their crap because the world doesn't cater to them. The culture intelligence of most Americans is crap. Signed, a guy from the deep south. It's not that fudging hard. The roommate speaks Spanish, which makes it really odd. Spanish has a word, negro, which means black. Maybe she is just wanting to have a fight or isn't very bright. Not the a-hole. 1. Giving your number out is harassment. 2. Being so incredibly intolerant of another person's language, last I checked, was at the very least discriminatory, at the worst, flat out racist. And 3. The only person making this a hostile environment is her. Go to the RA yourself and get a different roommate. Nobody should have to live like that. I like how she's accusing you of being racist while she's being racist. Not the a-hole. Yeah, a-holes often project. Posted by user Miscellaneous Me. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not telling my husband I'm pregnant until I'm further along? Hello everyone. I'm 31 years old and I've recently found out I am pregnant. I am currently 7 weeks. My husband and I have been together for a total of 11 years, and we have 2 girls together. Our relationship was fine until April 2018. I had a miscarriage at around 10 weeks. I was devastated, and it affected my mental and physical state. When I told my husband, he said things like, "What did you do? We have 2 healthy kids, so why did this happen? How did you mess this up? Why couldn't you take care of the baby?" I thought this was his way of grieving about the situation, since people react differently, but it still hurt to hear. I felt like I failed at being a mother. I had to have a DNC, and he refused to join me because he was too busy that day. I knew we were healing in our own ways, but I really wanted him to be there. It's a scary and sad process. He then told me since I was the one who lost the child, I should be the one to break the news to everyone. It was a miserable experience. While I received the comfort from my family and in-laws, my husband still doesn't care. It eventually got the worst of me, and I was clinically diagnosed with depression from miscarriage. I wasn't eating and lost interest in many things. It was to the point that my husband took notice. He called me lazy and homely, which didn't help. My mother suggested counseling to help us reconnect. During the sessions, my husband was very defensive when the therapist said his actions towards me were unhealthy. He stopped coming afterwards. We decided to take a break. It lasted for 3 months, and in those 3 months, he explained the situation to family members and friends. Apparently, he got a reality check from everyone. He saw he was being a straight-up a-hole towards me and has profusely apologized since then. Promised to never verbally abuse me anymore, and couldn't believe how he got away with the nasty things he put me through. We tried therapy again, and I could see the positive outcomes for both of us. He genuinely changed, and we rekindled in 2019 with no problems. That's where this pregnancy comes in. Am I the a-hole for hiding this pregnancy? December 11th is my last day of the first trimester. I want to announce it for Christmas, but what if it's too early? To be honest, I want to keep this a secret until I'm 28 weeks. I don't show until then, and it would be better because third trimester babies have a higher chance of survival if anything happens. But I know that's too long of a wait. I also can lose the baby at any time as well. That is why I'm hesitant on saying anything at all. What if I have another miscarriage? What if I tell our families again, only for my stupid body to lose another baby? Or worse, what if my husband blames me again and we split for good? I'm actually fudging scared. I feel better getting this off my chest, even if it is to complete strangers. Thanks for listening. I cannot judge this. If you don't trust your husband enough to tell him that you are pregnant, what on earth are you doing having a baby with this person? There is a difference between loving someone, wanting to be with them, and trusting them and feeling scared about someone's reaction. The way OP's husband reacted with the miscarriage was incredibly hurtful, and it's not surprising that OP is hesitant to tell him, even though she took him back because she still loves him and wants to be married to him. I'm afraid I have to disagree. You should be able to trust the person you love. Yes, you should be able to trust the person you love, but it would be hard to not be apprehensive about the situation given what happened last time. It's a hard situation either way. Yeah, but then why have the next baby if you're so apprehensive about it? It doesn't seem right that you now bring another unborn child into this mess, given that you can't trust your husband at all to comfort you with a great loss like this. I'm not judging OP in this sense. I'm just asking why was the next thing was to try and have another baby after this, while still feeling like this towards her husband. Not the a-hole? Okay, voting done, moving on. I hate your husband. I hate him so much. I also miscarried at 10 weeks, started at 6, and we thought we were making progress, only to end up in the office for an ultrasound, and they couldn't find a heartbeat. It was one of the worst days of my life. I couldn't pass the material on my own, even after 3 rounds of medication. We ended up at PP for a DNC. It was so hard. I also had 1 healthy pregnancy before, and it felt like my body betrayed me. My husband was next to me the entire time, and I asked myself those questions. What did I do wrong? Did I eat something, take the wrong meds, move the wrong way? Was it because I picked up some things around the yard the other day? Because I went to work? Because I did bed rest? Too much? Too little? Why couldn't I carry this baby to term? What was wrong with me? There was nothing wrong with me, and there was nothing wrong with you. Statistically, 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage, though doctors say it could be as high as 1 out of 2, because some happen before you even know you're pregnant. To have your partner turn on you like that, after your body turned on you, must have felt like the ultimate betrayal, and I'm so sorry. You deserved better. My rainbow baby is 5 months old tomorrow, and I spent the entire pregnancy scared to death, and I'm sure you'll spend a good portion of this one feeling the same. You wouldn't be the a-hole if you kept it from him and everyone else until you feel comfortable. That could be today, tomorrow, or on the way to the hospital to give birth. Quite frankly, I'm impressed you even got close enough to him to get pregnant again, because I would have noped my way out. You are under no obligation to tell friends, family, or anyone about your pregnancy. This process is so hard in and of itself that you should feel entitled to limit what external difficulties occur. Good luck, keep your head up, and I'm sprinkling lots of baby dust over you virtually. What gets me is that it wasn't OP, or the therapist, or his own innate sense of right and wrong that gave him a reality check. It was all the other people. Being cruel to OP was totally fine up until he had social consequences. Ergo, his default attitude to OP is that she's useless, contemptible, worthy of scorn and abuse until he is 100% happy. A quick Google would have given him an idea of how common miscarriages are. Talking to her doctor would have done the same, but he refused to go to the source of information as well. In his head, the only right and proper way to respond to this situation was to be unforgivably cruel to the person he claims to love most. It took the opinions of other people to teach him to behave. OP, in my opinion, whatever you decide to do, re the baby and your marriage, I'd book an appointment with your couples therapist and tell him with them there. You need the support, and he needs to know that your relationship still hasn't recovered from what he did, and there is still work to be done. Not the a-hole. Posted by user Caitlin KitKat. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling parents to leave me alone and let me raise my own damn kid? I just had my kid a week and 1 day ago. She was born via emergency C-section. Recovery has been horrible. I have also developed PPD. I love my baby regardless, but obviously the first few months are going to be very hard for me. But ever since I came back from the hospital, my parents have been up my ass about telling me how to raise my child. I take some of their advice, but a lot of it just annoys me. For starters, I asked both nurses and doctors almost every question I could think of about my baby, every day before I left with her back home. I wanted to be prepared, and double-check so I wouldn't risk any accidental harm. I have done everything doctors have told me to do as far as care. She even went to her first doctor's appointment not too long ago, and her physician said that I was doing an amazing job. Most newborns lose weight before they gain it back, but my baby is not only in great condition, but gaining weight. But apparently this isn't enough for them. They cannot stop giving me unwanted advice, and every time I tell them that's not what the nurse and doctor said, they give me the whole, I raised kids. These doctors don't know what they're talking about. Keep in mind, my grandmother is in her 70s, and my dad is in his late 40s. When they were raising kids, a lot of their advice is old school and flawed. Today, I just had enough. I'm trying to feed my baby, which is difficult, because at the same time I'm trying to feed myself because I haven't eaten all day. I get bombarded with calls and texts from my family telling me more unasked, unwanted advice. They told me, swaddle your baby with her legs straight. Meanwhile, my doctor told me that loosens the baby's hip muscles and isn't good for them, and told me the proper way to swaddle. Nope, they weren't having that, and proceeded to lecture me about how, once again, doctors don't know anything and treat black people's children differently from white people's children. Keep in mind, my child is considered white due to my fair complexion. I am still considered black, and my husband being white. Obviously, race shouldn't matter in this topic, but apparently it does to them. They would bring it into everything. I got annoyed and just told them to back off and let me raise my own damn child. I'm tired of being told one thing and then another thing from them. They are confusing me and my husband. From cold milk being dangerous, I've been told that there is zero proof that cold milk affects babies, aside from a little shock value in some, because they expect warm milk. From swaddling, to how to hold my baby because they think baby skulls don't exist even on the sides, and it's nothing but brain. Obviously that's not true, and other stuff, etc. Of course they are mad, and are calling me stupid for not questioning my doctor's advice, and undermining them because they've raised children and I haven't. I'm mentally exhausted. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents to leave me alone and let me raise my own damn kid? No, and I'm surprised you're letting the opinions of idiots continue to affect you like this, and you haven't just blocked them for a bit to leave you alone. If I was you, I'd continue to just ignore them, and I'm gonna call you not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Parenting techniques have changed a lot over the years, and what's recommended and done now is different from what was done decades ago. One of my best friends actually had a bit of a row that was later solved because the mum kept pushing her to do things how she'd done them, or because the mum questioned why she did things differently. Your child, your decision. Your parents don't know more than doctors or nurses. That's just a fact. unless they are doctors or nurses themselves. I love how the parents use the argument that because they raised kids, they know how to raise a child, and that OP should ignore the doctors. They act as if none of those doctors or nurses could possibly be a parent that has raised a child. Plus, every idiot with a working reproductive system could produce a child. Doesn't make them a proper parent or skilled at raising kids. Not the a-hole. Mama, block them all for a few days and concentrate on you and your baby. OP, this. I can't stress enough that having someone question your ability to raise your own child is not someone you need in your life right now. Trust your gut, trust your medical providers, and ignore the ridiculous offers your parents are pushing. Not the a-hole. It's pretty standard for parents to give unwanted advice, but they are going pretty far with it. Side note, while cold milk isn't harmful, it can give some indigestion and can lead to more spit-ups. However, I believe that is kid dependent. Mine would spit up instantly if her formula wasn't warm enough. Yet, this is also what I was told. It varies from different children. Mine luckily accepts cold milk. Instantly, with no issues thankfully, because I don't have a bottle warmer. She spits up due to eating too quickly, warm or cold milk. She drinks strictly breast milk. I don't know if that actually helps with digestion due to it being cold or not, because that's a question I actually haven't asked the doctor yet. And you're going to know your child better than anyone. Your family may be overcompensating right now and may back off in time. I wouldn't write off their advice completely. They may have a trick or two that will help with various issues that arise over the years, but you absolutely have the right to do what you want. Within reason, of course. It appears like OP needs to establish boundaries first before taking in advice from the parents. She seems to be doing her best, and from personal experience with PPD, gaining confidence in parenting and growing the bond with her daughter, along with those boundaries, could help with the PPD and then maybe reopen things regarding advice. Update. So in regards to my old post, I first want to say thank you for all the support. I tried ignoring my family, but it didn't work out too well due to how frequent I've had to see them. They were very argumentative whenever I came over, saying things like, I must not love them due to me not answering the phone. So honestly, not much of that advice worked. I had a tooth extraction not too long ago. That required me to have my family take care of my baby for 3 days. I left them a list of instructions. While I was there, they immediately didn't listen to anything I said, but that changed very quickly. When I told them, only feed her 2 ounces because otherwise you'll overfeed her and she'll throw up everywhere, they basically disregarded it. They overfed her, and the reason being, she's still eating. So obviously I told them, babies don't know when to stop eating from the bottle. But nope, they proceeded to say, oh no, you're just not feeding her enough. So I just waited for the inevitable. It only took 5 minutes for my baby to puke all on them, and honestly, it made me smile. And I blurted out, what was that? Me knowing what I'm talking about? Guess you'll be feeding her 2 ounces. And slammed the instructions that I wrote back in front of them. Kissed my baby goodbye and left for those few days. I came back 3 days later after recovering. My family looked absolutely exhausted, and that just made me smile more. They admitted to literally every single thing I've been telling them for the past 3 weeks. She really doesn't stop crying after warm milk. I guess it's not because you feed her cold milk. Wow, you must not be getting enough sleep. She had us up for so long. They love calling my phone because they think I have time to have a conversation, and so much more crap they accused me of doing wrong with her. Now I believe they'll shut up about how doctors don't know any better, because then I told them. My instructions they finally decided to follow weren't that of doctors, which they admitted beforehand, and that helped calm her down. Of course, I didn't get an apology. They are too proud to ever say, I'm sorry. In fact, they stated that after they followed my instructions, they were better than me than handling my own kid, which rubbed me the wrong way. which means I'll be ignoring their calls and texts even more. But at least they'll think it's because I'm actually busy with my baby. So I think I'm finally free of their unwanted advice, and all it took was a newborn to put them in their place. Edit: as many women have backed up in one comment in particular, pregnancy does a horrible number on teeth. This was not your typical normal everyday extraction. If it was, I wouldn't have needed the 3 days off to recover. It gets very tiresome repeating the same thing over and over again. I'm happy for you, and for them that they learned their lesson, although it sucks that they don't see the need to apologize to you after being rude. But you win some, you lose some. All the best with your baby. Poor kid. What kind of tooth extraction requires leaving a newborn with people who won't follow instructions for 3 days? When you have multiple pulled at the same time, pregnancy really screwed up my teeth, and the dentist refused to see me for anything because of my pregnancy. And while dealing with PPD, along with the pain due to the extractions, I wasn't mentally capable of dealing with my baby, unfortunately, and they were the only ones available to care for her. They did a good job considering. I've heard some people's teeth get really screwed up during and after having a baby. That's rough, and I'm sorry it happened to you. I'm assuming by cold milk you mean room temperature formula. Either formula or breast milk. She's normally on breast milk, but family used formula due to me not being there. They constantly told me colic, which she has, exists, because I gave her cold milk, which isn't true. She takes it very well, and most of the times falls asleep right after. They constantly said that room temp would settle that instantly. It did not. Posted by user Administration IC616, titled, Am I the a-hole for asking my ex-wife to transplant the tree she planted on our property? My soon-to-be ex-wife, 32 female, and I, 39 male, were married for 10 years before we got separated. We have 2 homes, a main home close to New York City and a lake house upstate. We agreed she would continue living in our main home and I would move to the lake house. 7 years ago, my wife's grandmother passed away. She planted a tree at our lake house in her honor. Since this was a vacation home that I'm now turning into a permanent residence, I'm going to be doing renovations, and there is no way around the tree needing to be removed. I am willing to pay for all expenses to transplant the tree and the aftercare to ensure that the tree survives the process. I am willing to wait until the right time to do this. However, I heard late fall is the best time, so we do need to start planning it now. My ex-wife does not want to transplant the tree at all. She wants to be able to come over and keep visiting, as it's a nice spot. There's a bench next to it, and it's next to the lake, and she would spend a lot of time out there. My girlfriend does not feel comfortable with my ex-wife coming to my house whenever she wants. My ex-wife says everyone she talked to about transplanting the tree says there is a risk of the tree not surviving, and she is not willing to take that chance, even though I'm willing to do whatever is needed to make sure the risk is as small as possible. However, I really don't know much about transplanting trees. I've never had to do this before. Am I the a-hole for asking her to transplant the tree? I personally don't think so. I think you've come up with a reasonable compromise, and I can understand why she is unwilling to not go through this entire process and risk losing the tree. It holds significant sentimental value to her, although I can see if the tree continues to exist in the place it's in, it's going to cause unnecessary and unwanted conflict. This is a hard one, but purely for asking her to transplant the tree, I think not the a-hole. You've given her plenty of time and plenty of options to come up with a reasonable solution. And so far it doesn't look like she has suggested anything else besides keep the tree there. So yeah, not the a-hole. Tell her straight up that the tree is in the way and will be getting moved regardless. Her only 2 choices are 1, you have the tree professionally moved to a property that she owns, or 2, they raise the tree when the renovations happen. Tell her she has until X date to tell you if she wants it moved. If she doesn't make arrangements to do so by that date, then the renovations will proceed however they need to. I came here to say this. Give an ultimatum, like, I'm getting rid of the tree. We can either move it to your garden or move it into a wood chipper. Your choice. Not the a-hole at all, but you need to put your foot down. Yeah, I agree. OP is being very awesome about this. Ultimatum is the way to go. Info. Will the tree need to be moved no matter what? It sounds like it's standing in the way of your renovations. Is that right? If it has to be transplanted no matter what, it might as well go to her property, I assume. You are being plenty generous already, and I don't think it's unreasonable not to want your ex-wife visiting and hanging around your property anytime she wants. And OP replies, yes, it will need to be removed. I have a large family and they stay at my house often, so I'm going to need to put an extension on the guest house. Just popping in, she can always take clippings and propagate them too, just in case the main tree dies, there will be other little ones from the same one. Beautiful cycle. This is a cool idea. I'll tell her about it. And if for some reason it does die, a woodworker could make a piece of furniture from the old tree. You would have to find someone to kill the logs into boards, not in the wheelhouse of most woodworkers, but then there is a lot of possibilities for a piece of furniture, or even some nice big wooden bowls or a cutting board. Update. I spoke to my ex-wife again and told her that this time of the year was the best time to move a tree and give it the highest chance of surviving, and that construction was going to start anyway, and even if we didn't move the tree until the last possible moment, there was still a good chance it could get damaged just from the work being done around it. She confessed to me that one of the reasons she did not want the tree to get moved was because she wasn't sure if she was going to keep the house or sell it because of the memories. She was unwilling to come up with another plan, so I had the tree transplanted to her mother's house, which isn't far from hers. Her mother talked to a landscaper, and I put up a bench and some bushes around it. It's a nice spot. My ex-wife isn't happy, but the tree seems to be. Thank you to everyone for your advice. Sir Harry Flashman says, well done for preserving and protecting the tree. Thank you. I never thought I would ever be so invested in the well-being of a tree. When I die, I want a green funeral. Basically, they put you in a cardboard bag and plant a tree over you. I've heard about that. It sounds really cool. You should read a book called The American Way of Death. It's old, but has been updated, and as a result, I have changed my will to reflect what I learned reading it. That's a great update. You really went out of your way, and the bench and bushes are a lovely touch. I wouldn't be surprised if she's not happy because, regardless of what you wanted and had agreed, re-splitting the properties, she still intended to come visit the tree quite regularly, aka spend time at what is now your property. But she can't have it both ways. You outplayed her, have got a clean break now, and have acted with kindness and dignity, even when she was being awkward. Bravo. Agreed. It seems like part of the reason she wants the tree to stay there was so she could continue to visit, and then eventually petition OP to allow her to stay there because she's already in the area to see the tree. I agree. It really seems like she just wanted a free vacation home. I bet she would have demanded OP allow her to stay at this place because it's such a far drive. That way she could go to the lake house whenever she wanted and always have an excuse. This was actually a really lovely thing to do. Not sure why your ex is unhappy. I'd be glad that my ex was able to show some empathy and move the tree rather than cut it down. Thank you. I'm sure she'll come around. I'm not sure she will, but that has nothing to do with your generosity. She is likely making so many excuses because she wanted a reason to have unlimited access to continue using your home as a vacation home. She may always be bitter that you took her excuses for that away from her. That doesn't at all reflect on you, though. Posted by user LetMeFall45. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not letting my mum see my kids? When I was 18, a week before graduating, my mum and stepdad went out and got too drunk to drive home. They called me and it was 2 a.m. in the pouring rain. I pull up directions to my home on my phone to be fast. My stepdad was giving me directions too, but my phone showed me he was taking us in circles. I told him this, he got mad at me and was screaming at me to follow his directions. He grabbed the wheel and jerked us to the side of the road. I lost it. I told him not to come to my graduation. He responded with, "Nobody cares that you're graduating," and kicked me out when we finally got home and went inside. My mum was in the back seat, and I asked her, me or him. She told me to leave. I did and never came back. I am married now with 2 kids and recently started therapy. My mom asks me what I talk about in therapy, and I always just say I want to keep it to myself. I finally caved and told her that week in therapy I talked about the above time, how it hurt me because I felt she chose him. She admitted she doesn't remember how the night went down at all because she had been drinking, but she demanded she wouldn't say something like that, so she didn't say it. I got upset and said she wasn't validating my emotions, and that's why I like therapy, because it's helping me work through everything. She told me I was a manipulator, and that my therapy will never truly help me because I'm a liar. I told her to shut up and I hung up the phone, and blocked her so I cannot receive her calls and texts. A bit far, but I need a break from her. I am working on boundary setting and wanted to take some time to think. This was 3 weeks ago. She texted my husband Thursday night asking if she can take the kids on Saturday to her house and the park. My husband said he would talk to me about it. We decided now was not a good time because I don't want her around the kids or me right now. We felt it was a way to try to get back to me because in the 2 years since my son was born, she has only taken him twice, one of which was when I was having the new baby. My husband texted her Friday night and said, "No, tomorrow isn't a good time." She texted back immediately, asking when a good time would be. Husband said, "We will let you know, that is it. Nothing else." We thought this was respectful enough, especially because my youngest has special needs, so our schedule is crazy. My mum called my grandma and said I wasn't letting her see the kids. She said she's done with me, my kids, and my husband. She then told my sister at their home to text me and tell me that we are no longer allowed to see each other and that my sister can't see the kids either. She told her I chose this. There's a bunch more stories that make me think my mum is the a-hole, but my whole life she told me I was dramatic, manipulative, etc. Though I really feel like I did the right thing at first, I'm starting to feel like she may be right. Am I the a-hole for not letting her see the kids? It's been about 2 months since she had seen them. This woman sounds like an absolute piece of work. I'm surprised your relationship with her and with your kids has lasted as long as it has. She doesn't seem like a pleasant person to be around, and it's obvious she doesn't actually care about looking after the kids or seeing them. She's currently playing some weird, wacky, and wonderful games, and I wouldn't want to be playing along with her. So, no, you're not the a-hole for not letting her see the kids. I would do the same. Not the a-hole. Top Jukes NA says, "Not the a-hole. If I was in your shoes, she wouldn't ever be around my children. She doesn't seem to care about your feelings. She is also more than willing to use people closest to you to manipulate you into giving her what she wants." Thank you. I have thought about cutting her off completely before, but was legitimately afraid I would end up without a phone, a car, or a home, probably because instances like above where it happened before. Though I am an adult and take care of all of my own things now, I am still afraid she will take everything away from me somehow. Once again, I sometimes am convinced this is me being manipulative and dramatic. Dan Savage likes to point out that all the power in the relationship between an adult child and a parent is with the adult child, because the parent no longer has a hold over the child's survival. I want to remind you of this because it's easy to forget. When you're a helpless kid and the person who makes your world turn yanks things away all the time, or threatens to, it annihilates your sense of permanence and safety, which is why they do it incidentally. They want you doubting and malleable. I struggled with this for a long time too, especially as a struggling grad during the recession. I still did need their goodwill to get by, and I had to keep playing the game longer because of it. But not now. Now I'm free, and so are you. If your mums have a fit, we don't lose our jobs. We'll still have our homes. Our partners won't walk out on us. The only thing that happens when mum throws a fit now is that mum throws a fit, maybe ruins her own day. We're safe. Not the a-hole, and I think some space from her would be good for you and your whole family. Go forth in peace and look after your mental health. Not the a-hole, stay in therapy. Love your children and husband. Live your life. I'm sorry that your mother behaves badly. Thank you, I will. All of these comments are making me emotional. Thank you so many times. She is being manipulative, not you. Talk to your sister about it. You'll be better off without your mum. Not the a-hole. Your mother continuously mistreats you, and there is no need for you to subject yourself or your children to that. She's using your sister to manipulate you. If your sister chooses to cut you and your children out of her life, that's because your mother demands it. That is squarely on their shoulders, not yours. Thank you. This is one of my biggest fears. My sister is 15 and most definitely wants to remain in my life, but is unable to drive or is controlled by my mother still. I want nothing more than to take her out of the home because it's awful there. But I am not well off financially, and my husband has a record from when he was young, 19 to 22, and homeless/train hopping. I don't think I would be granted custody, and the rest of my family is just as crazy. Update. Sorry if this is bad. I'm on mobile, and my kids are climbing all over me. So I've been no contact for 5 months or so with my mum and stepdad. Sometimes I feel guilty for not letting them see my kids. I don't feel bad for myself or for my children, but I feel bad for them not being able to have my kids in their life. What squashes me is that I've talked to my mum twice for the total of about 20 minutes, and both times I tried to explain I understand her feelings of wanting to see my kids, but by continuing to ask other people to contact me to see them is a breach of my trust and boundaries, and doesn't show me the needed respect I am demanding. I tried to tell her that I somehow needed to know that she's actually changing and becoming a better person before I'm comfortable with her being around me or my children. But the second I even say anything close to that, she attacks me and tells me I'm crazy for needing to know her personal business and tells me I'm hurting my children by not allowing her in their lives. I honestly do not feel this way, and I feel like I'm protecting my children from her lash-outs and harsh words when they are older, and no longer cute and cuddly. She legitimately told me that she would rather not talk to my kids at all ever again than try to right any of her wrongs. Fine. Her choice, not mine, right? Thank you everyone for your support and kind words. I am planning to continue no contact and even blocked her on my husband's phone, so she can't reach out to us at all. I have joined narcissistic parents on here, CPTSD, and just no mother-in-law, and find a lot of relatable stories, and feel like there are people who understand me. I also still am in therapy weekly and am improving my symptoms and doing well with getting my mother's belittling comments out of my head. I owe Reddit so much to aiding in this because of the nice people who gave me the strength and encouragement to keep going with putting myself first mentality I wanted to start those months ago. Posted by user ThrowSys and I, titled, Am I the a-hole for having a breakdown after my sister's announcement? So I have been struggling to conceive for the past 9 years. It has been a very brutal journey for me and my husband. We have experienced many disappointments. My sister is also happily married, and they adopted 2 teenagers who are also siblings. I have stopped going to my sister for any emotional support, as her advice has always been, just adopt. I know that she thinks the fact that I want to spend so much money on fertility treatments instead of adopting is stupid. In the past few years, I haven't spoken to my sister because my life revolved around the treatments and I didn't have any time for her negativity. This whole experience has changed a lot of things in my life. Everything is sometimes heartbreaking and I get irrationally emotional. I am pro-choice, and I know that in my brain. But when someone mentions that they had an abortion, I immediately see red. I usually remove myself from the situation, and I feel very bad and guilty for even thinking some awful things about women. Recently, we had a family dinner for our parents' anniversary, and she seemed a little off. My mum kept asking her what happened. At first, she wouldn't tell what happened. After dinner, me, mum, and my sister were sitting in the living room while the guys and kids were outside. My sister was grimacing, and my mum asked her again what happened. She confided that she recently had an oopsie and had to abort. She said that she already had 2 kids and she doesn't want more. I froze. I had always assumed that my sister was also facing problems, which is why she adopted. It felt like a punch to the gut to find out that wasn't the case. Worse, my mother was gushing and telling my sister how proud she was of her and that she was so brave. Something broke in me. I yelled, I screamed, I said some awful things. I said that her family wasn't real and she was an idiot for having an abortion. I told her that the fact that she would have an abortion for them was stupid. I told her that she wasn't even a woman because she couldn't appreciate the joys of pregnancy. I told her that she was going to regret doing this when they turn 18 and forget all about her. I stormed out after that, and after having another breakdown in my own house, I felt guilty and ashamed. I called my sister and my mother the next day and told them I was sorry. Both of them were incredibly pissed at me, especially because the kids overheard me saying that they weren't her real kids. I have been informed that they were going to cut all contact with me. I have apologized and tried to explain my side of things, and they aren't willing to listen. I don't think I should lose my family for a mistake, but I don't know. Am I the a-hole? Gonna go with yeah, this wasn't particularly a mistake. This kind of seemed like it was preventable, and you could have stopped yourself along the way multiple times, as you self-admit that you see red when you hear about abortions. I don't call this one a mistake, I call it a choice that you regret, but in no way was any of this a mistake. You intentionally went out saying these things. Call it like it is, OP. Stop trying to cover up the reality of the situation and take ownership for yourself. I genuinely think with that level of spite that you've shown for this woman, you deserve to be cut off for a while from them, and, apologizing won't fix things. Explaining your side of things will not fix things. The damage is done. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. You don't think you should lose your family over a mistake? I agree. A mistake would be accidentally backing into your sister's car after family dinner. This wasn't that. The hateful crap that came out of your mouth was inexcusable, period. Hi, OP. I was adopted as a baby. People like you made my life miserable from the time I was a small child. Too many people out there seem to think we deserve less or should never get to be a part of a real family, all because of crap completely out of our control. I'm almost 30, and I certainly never forgot about my parents when I turned 18. That is utter nonsense. We wouldn't walk away from the only parents to care about us. Why do you think people like me and your sister's kids deserve to be second class? I get that you're in pain about being unable to conceive, but taking that pain out on someone who did not cause the problem is just huge a-hole behavior, especially the kids. If they had to be adopted at that age, they've likely already been treated horribly. Your pain does not give you any justification to increase theirs. You're the a-hole, and your sister is being a good parent by keeping you away from her kids. Totally. My sister is adopted, and both my mum and I went to her bachelor's and master's graduation ceremony. She went to my law school and grad ceremony. We both take care of my mum, and she calls her mum to this day. We are a family, and we will always be, even after 20 years. Seriously, these kinds of people made my mum and my sister's life hell when she was younger, telling her horrible things. OP, you're the a-hole, and you do deserve to be cut off, at least for a while. You said horrible things, lashed out at people who didn't deserve it, and hurt children who have been through enough already. And the fact you called it a mistake makes it clear that you don't see the weight of your actions. 100% you're the a-hole. Flipping out occasionally can happen to anyone in extreme situations, I guess. But that being said, you went so far outside the norm here, I don't even think this can be called a normal temper tantrum. You went for the kill. You insulted her integrity. You insulted her family. You insulted her kids. There are times that apologies are not enough. This is one of those times. You caused a lot of damage and pain deliberately. You need to do some hard thinking of why you reacted so badly. You may need therapy. You may need a time out from your family because you were not thinking clearly. You may need to cut contact with your teenage relatives because seeing you is going to hurt them for a long time. You do not deserve forgiveness until you take actual effort to better yourself. And even then, it is on their terms and their timeline, not yours. Posted by user Shununeneb2929. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my brother he got exactly what he deserved when he pushed his girlfriend away for being a gold digger? My brother is a very hardworking man, and at 27, he is now very wealthy and doing very well for himself. He's been with this girl for 6 months, and throughout the time we have gotten close because we both like hair, makeup, and shopping. I never knew there was anything wrong with their relationship, except when she texted me last week saying that she would love to hang out, but thinks it'll be inappropriate because her and my brother broke up. I asked her why, and she said she was sick and tired of auditioning to prove she was with him for the right reasons. She went on to say that my brother is paranoid she's after his money, so he would like to test her, like 1, leaving out his bank statements on their bed and getting upset when she picked it up. 2, going out to eat at high-end restaurants he requested and leaving his wallet at home on purpose to make her pay the bill and prove she's not going out with him for money. And 3, never buying her gifts and questioning her when she asks why he doesn't. I was shocked, so I had to hear my brother's perspective. We spoke and he told me everything she said was true and that there was nothing wrong with making sure his girlfriend is with him for the right reasons. He said he left his bank statements on the bed and was peeking through the door to see if she would be curious. And when he saw her pick up the papers, he knew in his gut she was using him for his money. So, he set up the restaurant idea to see if she would get upset at paying for a $500 bill, which she was. I asked him if he thinks her being an elementary school teacher could have contributed to her being upset at a $500 bill at a restaurant he wanted to go to, and he said no. He said the straw that broke was when she asked him why he hasn't bought her a single gift since they started dating, when she bought him a gaming console and new rims for his car, and he knew she was just discreetly asking him to buy her an expensive gift. He confronted her and said he thinks she's with him for his money. So she said, "Let me do us both a favor," and dumped him and blocked him. He's upset about the gold-digging tramp, and when I laughed, he called me an a-hole. He said I would never understand what it's like being a rich man and being used. And I get that concern, but I told him if he thinks any woman will be okay with his tests and auditions, he's delusional as hell. If he doesn't want to be used for his money, he should start dating people as wealthy as him, or leave lower-income people alone if he's not going to be genuine in his relationship unless they pass his test. I'm going to go with not the a-hole for this one. I think it's pretty simple. I don't think you were an a-hole to him at all. You were telling him the cold hard truth that she told him, and he is denying that one. I think you may be feeling like an a-hole because he called you one and your actions were very blunt, but that's justifiable behavior. I don't think you can be considered an a-hole for telling it like it is At least in this context. Maybe other times it would be inappropriate. But I would like to validate your concerns and say, no, you are not the a-hole. You did well here, OP. Screw him, he is delusional. Not the a-hole. Sounds like you told your brother the truth, he sounds immature, and testing a partner never turns out well. He said it's impossible to find a woman as wealthy as him, so he's forced to date middle and lower class women, so he's still gonna continue his tests. I told him he should go to therapy, and he said I'm crazy. Your brother knows that there are things such as prenups, yeah? Also, while I'm by no means wealthy, I do alright for myself, as I am sure is the case for many on here. I will say that if I were invited to be treated at an expensive restaurant and be stuck with a $500 bill as a test, I would be massively arse-blasted and would end the relationship. There's no way I would have paid the bill on a teacher's salary. I would have left his ass right then. He goes after lower to middle class women because he feels like he has an advantage over them. He likes the power. This, seriously. He enjoys feeling superior and making them jump through hoops. Not the a-hole OP. Also, dump your brother and stay friends with the ex. Agreed. She sounds like a smart person with a good sense of self-worth. Keep her as a friend. As for your brother OP, I'd say you should give him a blow-up doll for Christmas. That way, he's got a completely compliant woman who he knows for sure isn't after his cash. May they both be very happy together. Bonus, it keeps him from inflicting himself on the dating pool anymore. It's a win-win for everyone. Only a-hole here is the brother. Also, where does she teach that she can afford game consoles, rims, and $500 dinners? Clearly, she is really responsible with her money, something that you'd think the brother would appreciate if he weren't such a shallow arsehat. She told me she dipped into her savings for all that, and not her salary, which is sad because she still has student loans and credit cards she's paying off. Posted by user Winifred Twerkle. Titled, Am I the a-hole for rejecting my boyfriend's engagement ring because he assumed I was taking his name? This happened in July, but the tension has not stopped building. My boyfriend, 36 male, proposed to me, 23 female, at a family function in July. It was his family at his brother's house. A lot of his family were there. His brother and his brother's wife, their kids, my boyfriend's mum, and my boyfriend's sister. They have family get-togethers all the time, so I suspected nothing. Well, near the end of the evening, he proposes in front of everyone. It was super romantic and I said yes. We've been dating for 4 months and I really do want to spend my life with him. The gag. The ring he got me is expensive and gorgeous and fits. However, about 5 minutes after proposing, I noticed the ring was engaged with my first name and his last name. I think rage is the right word. That he just assumed I would take his name, not even a hyphenated, as if I was now his property. I handed him back the ring in front of everyone and told him it was beautiful, but he had no right to assign me his name. I was not to be his property. We would be equal. Why not he take my last name? He took the ring but didn't really say anything. Most of his family kept quiet, but his mum and sister-in-law did try to comfort me and say that he didn't mean anything by it. Things have been weird since. It's like we're not engaged. He's acting like everything is normal, but has not talked about the ring, gotten me a new one, or even announced us as being engaged to his friends. There has been no wedding talk, and I figured the ball was in his court now with the ring, so I've been following his lead. I guess we're not engaged. My brother said I emasculated him in front of his family, and that my whole concern is stupid, and that I'm an a-hole for bringing it up at all, but especially in front of others. I feel like stripping me of my name is a big deal, and a discussion prior would have been the right way to do it. I'm more than happy to take his name if he would just ask. Am I the a-hole? Edits, I did want to add, because I think being safe is important, that the July family get-together was social distanced and everyone did wear masks. There were about 10 people total. I was gonna say not the a-hole for this one, and then I went back and read some comments and I'm like, wait a second. 4 months. You've been dating for 4 months, and he's already ready to engage and you are too, and then all of this drama happens. I think you both are misjudging the situation and you obviously don't know each other enough after dating for 4 months. And I think the way you're dealing with it after the fact is, I don't know, indicative of how you guys are gonna handle arguments and disagreements with each other whenever this happens in the future. Just gonna say, I really don't think you guys are right for each other if all of this is happening within the span of 4 months of getting together. I think it would probably be for the best that you guys either communicate more and go to therapy or break up. Everyone sucks here. Everyone sucks here. Dude, 4 months? I've had shirts that I used to wear for longer and said, why the hell was I wearing that? 13-year age gap. No discussion about being married or dealing with this stuff beforehand, plus you have been dating for an incredibly short time. If you were 43 and have experienced a ton of life, maybe already married and divorced, then meh about 4 months. But 23 and 4 months is way too fast. Totally agree, but I think OP sucks. If this man is someone you considered marrying at all, you could have handled the situation better. Throwing a hissy fit about it didn't help anything. You've been together for 4 seconds and never spoke about taking last names. You took a nice gesture and crapped all over it. Could have pulled him aside and talked about the last name thing later. He pulled a surprise proposal in front of his family. Why should he be surprised if she tells the truth about her feelings in the same environment? He put her on the spot, made an executive decision without consulting her, and expected her to accept the situation without question in front of his family. If you pull a surprise proposal in public, putting your partner on the spot, you have to be prepared for a surprise no. The thing is, she said yes, so he must have had an idea that that was going to be the answer. So her going into a rage is not a match for him surprising her, which in her words, she wants to spend the rest of her life with him. A simple talk alone about the name could have resolved it, and having the name on a ring does not make it set in stone by any means. He can get another ring or have it changed if possible. Or, he's a 36-year-old dating someone who is practically a child, so he could expect her to make further bad decisions. There are so many red flags in this post that I have to assume it's made up. If it's true, then you both suck so bad, I can't wrap my head around it. Everyone sucks here. Posted by user NotMyName2020. Titled, Am I the a-hole for calling my grandma by the wrong name until she gets my name right? This has been going on forever, so I decided to do something. I'm 16 male, half Mexican from my dad's side, and my mum's side is Scottish. Not gonna lie, most of my mum's family is high-key racist, and it's been problems sometimes growing up. My grandma on my mum's side never liked my dad and was happy after they divorced when I was 7. My name is Emiliano, and my grandma always complained how hard it is. She tried to change my parents' minds, and it's a shame that I got stuck with it. I'm actually proud of it. My dad told me about the revolutionary I was named after and their history. But literally my entire life, my grandma refuses to say it. She says it's too many symbols. I have a cousin named Alexandria, and they say the whole name. And she always came up with her own names. She says Leo, or once tried to get everyone to call me Elliot as a nickname for a while. Obviously, my mum's family was for it, but my dad refused that because it's not my name. It's always the same thing when I see them. She'll call me Leo or whatever. Even when I correct her, she says it's not a big deal and keeps calling me the wrong name. I told my mum I don't like it, but she always says I'm just not going to change her mind and there's no point in fighting it. So I decided if she's not going to want to call me by my actual name, I'm not going to call her grandma or say her name right. It's stupid, I know, but it's bothering me more that she doesn't care, and all my other cousins, she says their name's fine. No nicknames. Her name is Susan, so I decided to call her Sandy. To be honest, I was scared to say it, but that look on her face was worth it, Lamau. It wasn't surprise Pikachu face, but it was close. She said that it's not how I address her, and that it's grandma. I told her, nah, I'ma call her Sandy from now on, until she says my actual name. It got awkward. My mum was serious, and my grandma got super red in the face. She started ranting about me being a fudging disrespectful child, and this is all my dad influencing me again. My mum told me I need to apologize immediately, but I don't know what gave me the balls to not do it. We ended up leaving their house early, and my mum didn't talk to me until we got home. She says what I did was out of line, and I don't respect my elders ever. She wants me to apologize, and I'm grounded until I do. Haven't talked to my dad yet about this since it just happened, but I wanted to ask if I was being an a-hole, or was it okay for this situation to, quote-unquote, insult my grandmother. I don't know what stick is up her ass, but it's obviously tickling that brain a little bit too much. Think that grandma needs to take a chill pill because it's not as bad as she's making it out to be. I think the way you're going about it is intentionally petty, and I'm living for it. I support your decision here. I'm gonna go with not the a-hole. Adults and the elderly don't like it when they're given a dose of their own medicine. Not the a-hole, Emiliano is not a difficult name to pronounce, and your grandma is not respecting you when she's always mispronouncing it. So why should you respect her? It's a two-way street, and you don't owe her respect just because she's your grandmother. Good on you for sticking up for yourself and calling attention to her BS. Like, it literally ain't a hard name to pronounce. None of my friends speak Spanish and say it no problem. As someone who is much closer to your grandma in age than you, I am super proud of you. She has been disrespecting you as a person your whole life by refusing to use your given name. You have shown her how it feels. I don't know how this is going to play out, but kudos to you. If your parents try to discipline you, ask them how you should have approached it. You have asked repeatedly to be called Emiliano, and she has ignored your wishes. What else should you have done? If she calls you by your preferred name, you will call her by hers. It's fair. You have limited tools at your disposal. I think you have been very creative in approaching a difficult situation. As already alluded to, his mum will tell him he should have just ignored it, let it happen, and he needs to apologize. Mum is going to be of no help. Rationalizing won't do anything. Opie, be prepared to either take your punishment as long as necessary if you want to hold firm. If you're going to end up giving in to get ungrounded, you might as well do it. Although I agree with sticking to your guns, your household is not the court of law, and you have few rights in this regard. Why not call her abuela or abuelita? Sort of malicious compliance-like? Not the a-hole, by the way, but I get that you don't want to upset your mum. Posted by user Eat This, Drink This. Titled, Am I the a-hole for yelling at my mum when she made me breakfast before a test? I am fully prepared to be called the a-hole, but please hear me out. Since quarantine started, my mum, 47 female, has had the privilege of working from home. Almost every day she makes me breakfast. At first it was nice, but after a while I told her that I, 18 female, will be moving out soon for university and I'd like to learn to make my own food. At least my own breakfast. I told her that if she really wants to, she can make breakfast over the weekends, but during the weekday I'd like to make it myself. She agreed, and this was back in April and May 2020. Over the months, regardless of me telling her not to make me breakfast, she makes it and brings it to my room. Throughout the months, I've also told her multiple times that I don't like it when she brings food. whether it be breakfast, lunch, or dinner, to my room because it makes my room smell, distracts me from my work, and makes me feel guilty. Every time she brings food to my room, I end up eating it whether I'm hungry or not, just because I don't want her to feel bad. Sometimes when I'm working, she brings up lunch and dinner, and although there are times where I thank her for bringing me food, most of the time I remind her that 1. I want to learn how to remind myself to eat to prepare myself for moving out, and 2. The other reasons I listed above. Despite me reminding her hundreds, I swear I'm not exaggerating, of times to not bring me food, she still does it. This morning, I had an 8 a.m. test for one of my classes. After coming out of the shower, I saw that she had placed breakfast on my desk. My room smelled like food, which created a distracting atmosphere for me to write the test. When I went to pick it up, the knife slipped from the plate, she gave me pancakes, and fell onto the carpet, spreading syrup everywhere. I had 5 minutes before my test started at this point, and I was really frustrated. After quickly cleaning up the mess, I went downstairs and yelled at her, telling her that she needs to understand my boundaries and to keep to her word. She has said multiple times that she will not bring me food, and yet she keeps doing it week after week. I feel bad because it was a thoughtful action, and I love my mum, but I have told her so many times on multiple occasions to stop. Am I the a-hole? It's kind of hard for this one because I would love to have breakfast every day, and I understand that you want to be an individual and move out and progress, and I can't particularly fault you for that. I just think you're not handling this situation well. I feel like there are other peaceful ways to go about this situation, and yelling was not the appropriate way to do it. I think that you took it too far for this one, and I feel like you're the one stabbing yourself in the back here. I don't agree with her continuing to make you breakfast when you've made it clear too many times that she's pushing the boundaries. I think that you guys are both at fault here, so I think everyone sucks here. Update. Last night I apologized to my mum for yelling at her about me dropping my knife. I told her that it was my fault and I shouldn't have gotten upset at her over that specific point. I also explained to her exactly why I didn't like her making me breakfast, most of the reasons I outlined in my comments. She apologized and said that she'd try her best not to continue making me breakfast and let me figure it out on my own at my own time. She also said that she continues to do it because she feels bad when I don't eat right when I wake up. I explained to her how it makes me feel nauseous and sleepy and how that's a bad combination before 8 a.m. lectures. This morning, she made me a heavy breakfast, and take what you want from that. Thank you to all those that provided their opinion. I really appreciate all perspectives. I tried to respond to the most common perspectives as well. Extra info. 1. I didn't mention my struggle with mental health to paint my mum as the villain after I noticed that people were calling me the a-hole. I came here fully prepared to be called an a-hole. I didn't mention my depression or OCD just so people feel bad for me. I mentioned it as a context. I've requested her to change her mindset on mental health, and she hasn't. I thought it was necessary to mention that, as this breakfast request seems a lot smaller in comparison. I'm sorry if it came out as if I wanted her to look like a bad person. She's a lovely mother in many aspects, but she has a hard time to change her mindset on certain things. 2. I don't have any history of eating disorders. 3. I make my own lunch and I help my mum with dinner most days. I also eat dinner with my family. I'd eat lunch with them too, but my mum prefers to eat in her room, so I usually eat lunch alone in between my lectures. 4. I usually don't eat breakfast in the morning, which is why I've asked her not to make it. Whenever I am hungry in the morning, however, I put together something to eat as long as she hasn't already made me food. And 5. I have been enabling my mum, because wasting food is a big no in my family. No one else will eat her breakfast, since she doesn't eat breakfast, and my dad makes his own early in the morning. Some not eating the food would be considered a waste. I could put it in the fridge to eat as lunch, but that would take away from the wanting to make my own lunch as well. Many of you have been calling me a spoiled, entitled brat. I respect your opinion since I came here fully knowing that I might get stuff like that. However, I do think it's important to note that one situation doesn't define a person. In this particular situation, I may have come out as a spoiled brat, but that doesn't make me one in general. Again, nothing I can do about that one since that's what I came here for. As for my mental health issues, I've been seeing a therapist and trying to work things out with my mum. Thank you to all of you that shared their own stories. I hope you can all get a good, homemade meal soon. Take care. Everyone sucks here. It's understandable why your mum is an a-hole. She's not listening to your wishes. But for you, you tell your mum repeatedly you want to make your own breakfast, but what actions have you taken to do so? You clearly aren't waking up earlier if you're getting out of the shower 5 minutes before a test. You aren't going into the kitchen to prep something, so you're not showing any of your own initiative to make any changes. Maybe if you got up early enough and went into the kitchen with her, she would start seeing a reason to change. Also, you dropping the knife was your own fault. And sure, it's frustrating, but you took out your frustration with the time crunch on your mum. Not cool. Edit. Side note, parents love helping their kids. Sometimes it's really hard to let go of that. She's trying to support you. And I get having overbearing parents, and it's okay to ask for some boundaries as you get older. My parents still come and visit when they fly across the country and try to clean my apartment and do dishes when they're here, and I'm 29. It's just what parents do. Not the a-hole. It may seem like a kind and considerate gesture on the surface, but she is actually putting herself before you. Repeatedly violating a reasonable boundary like this is not acceptable, and it's all about her wanting to feel needed as a mother in some superficial and infantilizing way. This isn't really about helping you, and the fact that it's done under the guise of a kind gesture makes it difficult to call out. There is no reason for you to feel guilty for not eating breakfast that you specifically asked not to have. I would refuse to eat her breakfast from now on until she cuts that crap out. Posted by user CompleteTrade615, titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my granddaughter to stop being surly and rude? So my 21-year-old granddaughter had her wisdom teeth removed yesterday. For reasons unknown to me, she chose to have a general anesthetic despite being offered local only. Since she had general and her mum was unable to stay home with her during the day, I took her home to spend the night with me. This morning, I fed her breakfast and sat at the table with her. I tried to engage her in conversation, and when she said, I need to chew and my throat hurts, don't make me talk, I told her to stop being surly towards me. My husband believes I was too harsh with her and should have left her alone. I believe mealtime is social time, and one needs to be social anytime someone else wishes to socialize. She barely ate half of her food after 45 minutes of taking small bites anyway, so she didn't do much chewing. Excuse me, Miss Granny, I'm gonna need you to lay off the gas here. She's just had surgery. She's been under general anesthetic. You know, surgery isn't the easiest thing to recover from, and everyone experiences recovery differently. Maybe you're a superstar and you never had to have surgery, or maybe you have had it and you recovered fast. But give her a break, she's obviously suffering a little bit. You suck for pushing her to do something that she doesn't want to do. Feel like you should have just recognized that. You're the a-hole. Yes, you're the a-hole. She literally just had surgery in her mouth, and you expect her to be cheery and chipper and willing to talk despite being in pain. Secondly, just because you wish to be social doesn't mean anyone is required to be social with you. Two things here bother me so fudging much. 1. My grandma is that type of person, aka, I want to talk so you have to listen and talk. It's so annoying. I'm an extreme introvert and don't like talking. Also, my grandma is very blunt and rude. And 2, when I got my wisdom teeth taken out, even with just local anesthetic, I could hardly eat for 2 weeks. Between the pain and the fact I could only open my jaw a few centimeters, I just couldn't. I'd sit at the table for an hour before I'd give up and just resort to not eating. Dude, she had a surgery in her mouth. Leave the girl alone. You're the one being rude here, not her. Just because you want to socialize doesn't mean whoever you pick as your victim has to deal with it. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. Getting your wisdom teeth removed can be extremely painful. They had to chisel one of my sister's teeth out of her jaw. She was definitely not chatting over breakfast the next day, and we as reasonable humans had no problem with that. Also, no one has to be social every time someone else wants to socialize. That's not a reasonable expectation. Posted by user TwinThrowaway19. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not wanting to share my birthday with my dead twin anymore? My 19th birthday is this Friday, and I told my mum and dad I don't want to do anything if we're going to have the birthday for my twin too. I was an identical twin, and me and my sister were born early, and she died a few hours after we were born. Every single birthday since I was little has also been a birthday for her. We go to her grave and put flowers on it, and every gift has always had both her and my name on it. Mum gets really sad and always cries for a long time, and I've always felt overshadowed on my birthday. The grave visit and flowers all have always been mandatory, and I was never allowed to just have friends over or have a party until after we did it. I want to go to dinner with my boyfriend for my birthday at his house, and then I'm going to watch movies with my friends. Mum is upset I'm not making the hour-long drive Friday to do the grave ritual, and is really sad. And my dad is making me feel guilty, since I'm their only living daughter and stuff. I told my mum I don't want to share my birthday with a sister I never even knew, and I'm done with sharing with a ghost since this has been my entire life. My parents are really upset, and now I feel really bad and maybe I should just suck it up, but I am just so sick of it. Yeah, I'm gonna go with not the a-hole for this one. This grieving has gone on too long and it's starting to affect you and bleed out way too much into your life, impede your social life, and is just a general nuisance, I would say. Like, we have to let go of the past. We do eventually have to give space to those who are still living and let them live their own lives. It feels like they still haven't gotten over this baby. That's fine, but they shouldn't be imposing that on you at all. I don't blame you for wanting to get out of that house and not doing that ritual again. Not the a-hole. Edit. Okay, so I didn't expect this much attention, so I'll try to answer some questions I've gotten a lot of. First of all, I don't live at home, I live on campus, which is an hour away from my hometown. Second, I don't care if my parents go. They can do whatever they want, just without me. I've hated going to the cemetery since I was like 13 and realized how weird it was, but my parents were very my house, my rules about going. I don't like standing over the grave of a dead baby just to pretend to feel sadder than I do. I know it's hard on my parents, but I just want to have a birthday without being guilted by them. My mum gets quiet and cries a little whenever my sister is brought up, and it's turned up to 100 on my birthday. She died the same day as we were born. It sucks seeing her like that. I love my parents, but you can love someone and not like their choices too. Not the a-hole. Maybe I would look at this differently if you and your family had actually known your twin, but they basically died during birth. That is truly awful, but you never had any connection to them, so sharing a birthday with them is almost a bit morbid. Like, instead of having a fun day with activities you get to choose, you get to have a memorial instead. That's a bummer, and I can understand why you'd want it to stop. I know it must be hard on your mother, but maybe she should start respecting the feelings of her actual living child. I agree with this so much. I try to be understanding when it comes to grief. I never lost a child, so who am I to judge, but putting the dead baby's name on the living one's present? That's just weird. It sounds like the mum never processed her grief completely, and now she's not grieving, she's wallowing. That is not healthy for anyone. OP, you are not the a-hole, and I hope you have a very happy birthday. I also feel like the family could visit the grave any other day of the year. It's not like it has to be on the birth date. They are choosing to make every one of OP's birthdays a sad day for them instead of letting them enjoy it. That was my exact thought. They could celebrate the daughter they have on her birthday and memorialize the one they lost on the following day. Instead, they are choosing to prioritize the lost over the living. It's terribly unfair to OP. The one day, literally, that should be all about her is instead all about a ghost. Giving her gifts with the deceased baby's name on them makes OP a mere proxy. Go reclaim your birthday, OP. Find a way that makes you happy because you deserve that. Her parents should be celebrating the fact that OP survived, instead of mourning the one that sadly didn't make it. Not the a-hole? Your parents need to move on. I'm not saying they shouldn't still be sad on the day, but forcing you to share your birthday with a dead sister is unhealthy after 19 years. The most utterly unique thing on earth is one's grief. Your mother lost something unique, her own child. You did not. To force her grief to be shared at this point is selfish. You gave her 19 years. When do you start living and celebrating without including your sister? Miserable birthdays are a part of life. This year, you're going to be minimizing the misery of next year and the year after that. This year is probably going to suck on some level, since you are feeling guilt to the degree that you are posting here. But Fang Dang Dingo is right. What's here is forced. Who needs forced grief? Your mum should be mature enough to let you live your own life, and not have your own grief validated in some way by your solidarity. You have your own grief, break free. Posted by user Adold133. Titled, Am I the a-hole for not telling my wife the perfume I buy her is what my first wife wore? So I was previously married, but that marriage ended due to my wife's passing. In a lot of ways, I've still not come to terms with it, but I'm better now and have come a long way from where I was after it happened. I try to keep her memory alive with the little things that remind me of her, and one of the things I've done since she passed away was always keeping some of her brand of perfume around so I could keep that scent or her scent present. I'm sure that seems kind of creepy, but it's not uncommon among other widowers that I know. At some point, I bought it for my current wife as a gift and asked her to wear it. I didn't tell her when I gave it to her that it was the same type my first wife wore, but my first wife's friends and families noticed and I asked them not to say anything. They didn't, but told me they felt that this was not healthy. I disagreed because I wasn't forcing her to wear it, and it was the only thing like this I did. I never asked her to change hairstyles, hair colors, or the way she dressed, so it's not like I was trying to recreate my first wife. It wouldn't have worked even if I wanted to do that, because they don't look alike, which I think proves that what I'm doing isn't unhealthy. We've now been married for over a decade, and my former sister-in-law finally told my wife about the perfume. She thinks that I need to move on and stop living so much in the past, and believes that my first wife wouldn't want me hiding something like this from my wife, or holding on to her in some of the ways that I am. I don't get her concerns. She acts like I'm a crazy person, but this is the only thing like this I've ever done. Ever. I feel like she's making this into a big issue when it's not. My wife was very upset that I never told her about the perfume being my first wife's favorite, and it has caused some other issues. For one, she now wonders if some of the times I was really attracted to her, it was just the perfume and me imagining my first wife. I've tried reassuring her, but she won't listen to what I say. She thinks I'm the a-hole for what I did, and my wife's family have all said as much in private over the years because of this secret. I don't think what I did was that bad. I didn't tell her, but I never forced her to wear it, and I haven't tried to change her. She knows I love her and our family, and I always thought of this as a harmless tool to help me deal with the past. I don't feel like an a-hole, but I'm not sure that I can judge myself fairly because I've done this for so long and justified it to myself over the years as a harmless thing that helped me process my feelings. Everyone seems to think I am wrong, so I don't know anymore. Maybe I was always the a-hole and didn't know it. Another one to do with grief and dealing with grief. Seems like an unhealthy habit, and I would be creeped out if I was in the wife's shoes too. It kind of feels like a memento, a throwback to the dead wife that she wasn't in on, and it seems somewhat to me perverted that he's done this. I would feel that there is an element of perversion if it's my partner. Obviously, different people, different folks, different strokes. But for me personally, I'm creeped out. I feel like crawling out of my skin that he's done this. It's definitely a lie by omission, and he definitely should have filled his wife in. I feel like OP is in the wrong for this situation, and I hope they can fix it. But this is one of those trust breakers, I feel. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole? You kept this from your wife for a reason. You knew it was wrong when you did it. This. Yes, you're the a-hole. OP, imagine your current wife had an ex-husband who was her first love, but they had to separate on good terms. Maybe because he had to move away, making the relationship long distance, and they could no longer carry on their marriage for whatever hypothetical reason. Then your current wife marries you and decides to ask you to wear the cologne of her first love because it's the one and only way it reminds her of her ex-husband. Would you not feel kind of weird and icky? Like she wants you for something else in her life that, in essence, isn't you. Especially if she didn't tell you it was his. That lack of information and secrecy feels, well, bad. You're the a-hole. Sorry to say it, but your wife should have been told why you gifted her the scent. If she chose to wear it, that's one thing, but you took away that agency because of your own needs. That's really not okay. If I were the wife, I would start wondering, did he get me that cute insert clothing because his first wife wore something like it? Did he suggest that baby name because it was the one his first wife dreamed of naming their future child? Did he, etc., etc.? I'd be terrified of waking up one day and realizing that he was molding me into a replacement wife number one, and I would immediately dispose of that perfume bottle. For sure. I'm afraid I would be disposing of the husband as well, because any trust I ever had for him would be gone. To have been deceived like that for as many years as he has done, it would be a deal breaker for me. I would literally have no problem if he had that scent somewhere that I was not aware of, and just every once in a while remember good memories because that's what we do. Sometimes things trigger a memory and we visit them. But to have unknowingly been made the instrument being used to visit those memories? No way. He didn't tell her because he knew it was not appropriate. Yup, you're the a-hole, and no, you never forced her to wear that perfume. But if you had told the truth, she would never wear the perfume in the first place. It doesn't matter that this is the only thing you did. This isn't a numbers game. You tricked your wife into wearing your deceased wife's perfume. That is incredibly weird and morbid. Listen to your wife. Listen to your friends and family. What you did was wrong and you need to take responsibility and acknowledge your wife's feelings in this. Posted by user Throwaway78,000. Titled, Would I be the a-hole if I gave my son a very similar name as my sister-in-law's dead son? I'm 25 female and about to have my first baby with my partner. It's a boy. I've long wished to name my child a certain name. Let's say that it is Tom, after my grandfather who basically raised me when my parents dropped the ball. The thing is that my sister-in-law lost her baby 5 years ago. Let's say that he was named Thomas. Thomas died in his sleep when he was 4 months old, and the whole family was devastated. I know that his death still causes them very much pain, and I get that they don't want to be reminded of him dying all the time. So, I asked them if it was okay that I named my son Tom, since it's a similar name to their son. Me, my husband, sister-in-law, and her husband had a long and tearful conversation about it where they gave us their blessings. However, a couple of weeks later, I hear that she has been telling her mother and father that I'm being very selfish and inconsiderate, and that she couldn't believe that I was doing this to her. When I confronted her with this, she told me that of course no one would be okay with such a thing, and that she hopes I lose my child and see how that feels. And let's just say that it escalated to a lot of screaming from the both of us. I'm considering just sticking to the name because the whole thing has left me exhausted, and it's not the first time she's done something like this. But then again, she is a grieving woman, and this is a difficult matter. So Reddit, would I be the a-hole? Should I just pick a different name? This one's a toss-up between no a-holes here and everyone sucks here, but I'm leaning on the everyone sucks here because there's been a lot of deliberate and intentional things said, especially the I hope you lose your child so you see how it feels part. And I guess the fact that you told them you were going to still name the baby when, you understood that it's going to hurt their feelings and your entire family is going to be like, it's kind of still weird you named the baby that when there was one that died at 4 months old. OP, do you not see how weird this is? I feel like, I don't know, something I'd turn my eyes to the side and be like, ooh, that's not right. I'm kind of judging you for that. Everyone has done wrong in this situation, and I don't know how you guys are going to fix this one if you ever do. Everyone sucks here. Everyone sucks here. If it was a long and tearful conversation, it means that you were asking them to do something that was really hard for them. I think it was really insensitive of you to even consider it, to be honest. Quote, she hopes I lose my child and see how that feels. If she literally said that, she hopes your baby dies. That's not okay. And OP replies, I do agree that I must have missed something, considering her reaction afterwards, but the tearful part of our conversation was, in my perspective, because we were talking about little Thomas, how much they missed him, and how scary it is to be a parent. I asked if the name Tom would remind him too much of Thomas, but they said that babies always make them think of that, and that the name Tom wouldn't make it any better or worse. I asked if they were certain, and that I could give him another name, but they said it wasn't necessary. Most of the conversation was about their loss and how they dealt with it. Still, everyone sucks here. Any considerate person would know Tom, or any iteration of it, is off the table. Your sister-in-law will say whatever she wants in front of you and backstab you no matter what. A dead child is such a sensitive issue, and people go crazy over it. You really should have seen this coming. Right? My son was born still, and we named him Jameson. It would be beyond bizarre to me if any of our siblings asked if naming their son James was okay. There are an infinite amount of names in the world. As far as the sister-in-law saying what she said in their fight, grief isn't an excuse to say something like that. However, I'd be interested to hear the actual argument and what was said both ways. You're the a-hole. Pick another name. Tom is a nickname of Thomas in your example. Of course it would be painful for the parents of your late nephew. You have the option of choosing another name to honor your grandfather, so why not use your grandfather's middle name or surname in your baby's name? For example, if the grandfather was Tom Adam Harris, then you can do Adam or Harris as a first name. Why is this not an everyone sucks here for her saying that she hopes her baby dies? Are we just glossing over it? Because that's not what OP is asking. The question is about the name. The judgment isn't how we feel about the sister, but about the topic. She lashed out, yes, but OP is the a-hole if she uses basically the same name as her sister's deceased child. Posted by user Coworker Throwaway 999. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my husband he is either married to me or his coworker? So, my 37 female husband, 40 male, has been working at his company for 10 years as a maintenance supervisor. About a year ago, they hired Tabitha to work their accounting department. Since the day she first started working there, she has had an infatuation with my husband that is now becoming unprofessional and inappropriate. This started when the heat went out in our office. My husband's job as supervisor is to assign tasks to his employees. However, she is never satisfied with the work they do, even though he says that they do great work. So she demands that he works on her office. She constantly calls him on his work phone for mundane things. Carpet is loose in a corner, loose screw on her coat hook, and he goes and fixes them without issue. Last year, when we went to the company Christmas party, pre-plague times, she was very flirty with him, constantly grabbed his hand. When he introduced us, she just grinned at me and said, "Look, there's Peter," and grabbed his hand and walked away. When we sat at the table, she damn near pushed me out of my seat to sit next to him, and my husband told her to get up and that it was my seat. She walked off in a huff, and when she saw me in the restroom, she shoved past me. I told my husband what happened, and he said that it was fine, that she was harmless. I told him that she was not fine, and that she clearly had feelings for him, and she was acting like a jealous girlfriend. The past few weeks, this has ramped up to an astonishing level of inappropriate. She recently moved into a new house, and my husband and some other guys from work helped her move and put things together. He gave her his personal cell phone number, and she has been calling and texting non-stop about things she needs help with. Multiple times a day, at all hours of the day and night, she will call and text him for help. Last night at 2 a.m., she called about her heat not working right. My husband said that he would go over and look after it after work. I broke down. I told him he was not going, that she could call a technician like everyone else, and that he is not her personal maintenance man. I told him very clearly that she has feelings for him, and he is so dense he can't see it. I told him that while it's nice to help on occasion, she calls him all the time asking for help with things that she can do on her own, like move boxes and furniture, or pay to have a repair person come and fix. I told him that once he gave out his personal phone number, that he crossed a line, and I'm not comfortable with it. He said that this will most likely be an easy fix and it won't take long. So I cried and told him that he can either be married to me or married to her, but I wasn't going to be a third wheel in my own marriage. He says he does not have feelings for her, and that I am overreacting to him just wanting to help a friend. I feel otherwise. Am I the a-hole? If I were you, I'd be just as paranoid in a situation like this. It kinda does feel like, if not physically, he's emotionally cheating on you with this woman, and dedicating so much time to helping her out, it does seem inappropriate. I can't blame you for what you've said in this post. I feel like a lot of people would have felt the same way, so I'm gonna go with not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. He might be blind to the crush, but doubtful. But you're telling him how aggressively she is treating you, and he doesn't seem to care. Trust your gut here, OP. I don't think you're on the wrong track with what you're suspecting. It always requires a second look when a woman is acting or characterized as crazy. 1. Either she is straight up insane. 2. She is also confused, just as OP is. For instance, if you were told by a man that he was leaving his wife for you, and then he dismissed you when she came to the Christmas party. Or, if you talk on the phone constantly, not knowing that he tells his wife he's doing maintenance work for you. Info. OP, have you seen his texts, and are they definitely about maintenance? Option 1 could be the case, but consider looking into it. Snoop, work out if he is deleting messages. One pretty direct way if things are still murky is to talk to this woman yourself. If you're both being lied to, it'll be obvious. You are not the a-hole. Hubs, on the other hand, is a grade A dyed-in-the-wool jackhole. Any man who invalidates his wife's concerns over behavior this blatant is either banging side chick, or is at a bare minimum enjoying the attention, but doesn't want to admit he's enjoying it. Either way, you're in the right here, and if he doesn't willingly shove this woman off, you will have some decision-making to do. Or, he is 100% enjoying it, no doubt. No one can be that blind. OP is definitely not the a-hole. Posted by user Phototivity. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling a woman I don't care she has breast cancer? Some background. I work in a very tiny chain retail that sells bras and underwear. We barely have business, maybe 2 to 4 customers every hour, so we try to help people as much as possible since we're able to. This story happened literally 20 minutes ago. Lady walks in, I'll call her CL for Crazy Lady for short, and immediately comes up to me as my manager is on break and says, "I need help now," Crazy Lady says. "Absolutely," I say back. "What are you looking for?" "I have breast cancer, and I'm starting radiation soon, so I need a comfortable, supportive bra to wear that won't irritate me." I walk her over to the bras that I show every woman in the same situation. She hates those. I show her another section. She hates those. I try to ask what in particular she hates about each bra, and she doesn't have an answer, and insists I show her more. So, I continue to point out different bras, offering various reasons why that one would work. Eventually she goes, "This is fudging ridiculous. You clearly don't know your crap. Bring your other co-worker out because you obviously don't know crap. No wonder you work retail." I immediately started laughing, but blurt out, "Excuse me," in between giggles. She then gets angry and says, "Oh, so now you're laughing at me because I have breast cancer? Real nice." At this point, my manager comes out and CL proceeds to say how I refused to help that customer and I laughed in her face and that I made fun of her for having breast cancer. CL then makes the difficult decision to tell the manager I should be fired. Oh, so sad. And of course, she wants a discount. My manager, not wanting a scene, goes to the back to grab a 10% coupon code just to appease the situation. In the meantime, Crazy Lady looks at me all smug and goes, "I really hope you can survive in this world without asking $10 an hour." So here is where I may have been the a-hole. I go, "You really think I give an F about this job? I work here once a week on the weekend to help my manager while I have my full-time Monday to Friday job. Working here to help ape craps like you who have no respect for others is the least of my worries. Have breast cancer all you want. You're going to die a stuck-up tramp one way or another if you keep treating people like this." Crazy Lady instantly starts crying and runs out of the store after telling me she's calling corporate. My manager walks out, asks where Crazy Lady went, and I tell her everything. She knows I work to help her out and that I give no craps about the store, so she understands. But then says I was way too harsh on her and will have to look into this now. So, am I the a-hole? I guess you're a little bit of an a-hole in some regards that you're not supposed to be doing that to people in retail. It does not reflect well on you as a person, you're a job, and you are, supporting a business. Calling someone a stuck-up tramp is kind of trashy. Saying have breast cancer all you want, kind of trashy. Yes, she did you wrong, but you didn't have to go that far. And she's obviously a piece of dirt for saying what she said. There's no excuses for that. I think both of you are just being bratty in this situation, and I think you need to take a chill pill. Everyone sucks here. Everyone sucks here. The customer is not always right. We know this. She was horrible, and she'll likely always be horrible. One interaction will not change that. But it sounds like you have self-awareness and you didn't have to stoop to her level. Edit to add, while it feels good in the moment to put people in their place when they deserve it as much as this Crazy Lady does, it can do more harm than good to the wrong people. That type of person will likely call corporates, and when she shares how horrible she was treated because she has cancer, that's what she'll say, likely with Waterworks. It will blow back on your manager. The Crazy Lady will likely get a larger discount and feel vindicated, not bad for her behavior. Something like, I've helped multiple people with breast cancer, maternity, and other types of bras. Since you have no idea what to get, maybe take my advice since I've done this before, would have been a lot better than, you're gonna die a stuck-up tramp, especially since most people associate cancer with death. Everyone sucks here. I work at a small retail store, and we have an employee or two, or all of them, who are working there more or less to just help out. Every day, we deal with Crazy Lady customers. It's unfortunately part of the job. We had one crazy lady last month who was unreasonably unhappy with their services, and got her friends to help her leave 20 negative reviews that are still up after weeks. Our rating tanked from 4.9 to 3.8 overnight. It's terribly, terribly not worth it to treat a disrespectful customer with anything but respect, especially if you were doing it to help the store. If I was the manager, I would ask you to reconsider if you want to continue helping. Alright, I think that's where I'm going to end today's video, guys. I do hope you enjoyed it. As always, I want to do a huge shout out to all my channel members and Patreon subscribers. You should be up on the screen now. I love you all, and I think every single one of you are amazing for supporting the channel in the way that you do. Again, thank you so much for supporting me. And again, if you did enjoy today's video, please do tell me what you thought of it down in the comments below. All of your hot takes, opinions, whatever you think, really, whatever's going on in your life right now, I'd love to hear down in the comments below. Before I leave, I'd also like to announce that I'm going to start doing meme content again on the second channel. I know it's been a while, so click on the Markee head on the screen without the Australian flag behind him if you want to go see some memes. And as always, guys, have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.